How's the light looking? Oh, you turn this light off.
Okay.
Just leave it there. That'll be fine, little one.
Yeah, it's not like we have to worry about that or anything.
Yep. Thank you, honey bunny. Oh, Chain Mile. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last. Yoi? Uh, anyhow, oh my goodness. We have been busy. The Eva's sons were here for 4 days,
Yep.
something like that. And she obviously wanted to make the best of it. And we went a number of places. Hey, Rock. And we went to I don't know if you call it a prison museum or a museum prison.
It's
Over
the Prison Museum and Auto Museum.
in Deer Lodge. That was pretty cool. That used to be the Montana State Prison up until not too long ago, like what, about
Late
1980?
70s, early 80s.
About 1980, somewhere around there. And one of the things when you have a museum or something like that really makes it regular is the tour guides. And I thought we had some pretty good tour guides. They had a lot of interesting information and such.
Great collection of classic cars.
And they also have a large car collection over there. I don't know, it's over 100. Most of these are show cars. Just looking at it. Hi, Graham. It's like people who have collector cars just park them there to keep their garage clean.
The signs said on loan.
Yeah, because they were all on loan from this or that or the other. And surprisingly enough, most of them were from Deer Lodge, weren't they?
Actually, I saw a few from Townsend, and that one and only car in the entire world that has not been restored was from Townsend.
Okay. Because I know.
saw them from Townsend, Helena, Missoula, Deer Lodge.
Maybe it was just the ones I happened to look at, but it was so funny because I'm going like, man, there's a lot of people with classic cars in Deer Lodge. But anyhow, that was good. We liked that. And
went to Yellowstone, saw our old faithful.
We went to Yellowstone.
And I wondered if there was any gold in those geysers.
Yeah, I'm sure there is some. Haven't got that video up yet. As a matter of fact, I had kind of forgotten because our camcorder wire broke on it, the one that just plugs in the USB. So that was the way I was usually downloading it. So now we had to get a USB adapter card. And I mean, the boys were here, otherwise it would have been completely untenable. But anyhow, so we managed to download the cards. It's not that hard if you just aren't as electronically retarded as I am. But then we've been kind of busy with catching up on a few things and dealing with a few kind of urgent issues. None of them are, terribly catastrophic, dangerous, anything like that. Everyone's health is doing okay and all that other stuff, but just things that need to be dealt with fairly quickly. So we just been busy. And I don't see that.
Yeah, closing out all that business down in Tucson.
I don't see that changing for probably another 2 weeks. We just got a lot of stuff that just kind of all came together at once. No big problems, no big issues. As a matter of fact, some of it's pretty interesting and fun. And Chris, I want to thank you too for showing me how to look at different stuff. I mean, different in Google Earth, you can click on an icon and move a slider and look at photos from different times. And sometimes that's useful simply because you get a different angle of the sun. Hey, Mr. Lodak. Other times It's an issue of, in our case, we're looking at an area that uh, supposedly something happened in mid 1990s. Okay, something that should have left a detectable trace on the surface and was reported in a very specific area, you know. And so we were looking for this detectable trace, and in fact, could not find it in the area that it was supposed to be. Hold on a second. Hey, Lauren, how's it going? I'm just started the live stream. How's it going? Are you going in or out? Okay. Well, let me put Eva on here for a second, and we'll go talk for just a minute. Okay. Okay. Uh,
Hi, everybody. So anyway, my kids visited. I love my boys. I really do. Older son respects our choices, even though older son, as he put it, touched more grass in the last 3 days than he has in the last 5 years, and he hates it. Okay. Older son is a concrete jungle kind of person. Younger son, let's see, negative Nelly, master rainer upon parades, would probably love it if we became greeters at Walmart part time, you know. And I will be the first to admit that that actually hurt my feelings because, at least older son will make mildly interested noises when I'm talking about my doings in the lab, even if he doesn't really care. You know what I mean? Yeah, Jeff, it's a meme. They tell how people live in their mom's basement, or they live entirely online, and they live in cities, and they just get completely removed from the real world. One of the memes associated with this is you need to go out and touch some grass, so that you remember there's actually a world outside of the office, outside of the video games, outside of the computer culture. Hi, Graham. Honey bunny, I have zero clue how my apples fell so far from my tree. Okay. I really have zero clue in that regard. It's just like you've got to be kidding. Yeah, David, apples do roll downhill. But anyway, we had a really cool time. And if anybody ever makes it out to Montana and wants to do some out of the way touristy things, out of the way touristy thing number one would be the prison and classic car museum. They're in the same building. Because for like $18, you get passes actually to 5 museums total in Deer Lodge. You got the prison museum. You got the antique cars that are on the same property. Across the street, you have a small museum for antique toys and games. I also saw a World War II type museum and a Wild West museum of some kind and the county museum of some kind. So there's all kinds of little stuff in Deer Lodge that is really freaking cool. And the Ringing Rocks are out in the middle of nowhere. We did not take the boys there, but you can indeed hit these rocks with a hammer or other object, and the rocks do indeed ring like bells, and they're really cool. Oh man, Chris, how are you always getting um, buffering over there? It must be where you live. Well, I'm not sure how long touching grass has been a thing, but my son was sitting there when we were eating pizza on the last day, and I looked at him and I said, I really love the fact that even though you positively despise nature and everything that is green and growing and related to the outside. You go along with all the things I want to do when you come to visit. He's like, Ma, I touched more grass than I have in several years. And no, I don't like it at all. But I came to visit you. It's like, aw, it was so nice. But anyway, that's what we've done this week. And basically, since our old house down in southern Arizona in Tucson is being closed, it's being cleaned out now. The dude that's been living there finally got a place of his own, and he's going to be out of there August 31st. So it's been informing the landlord, and I've got to get together with the utility companies and do all that stuff online to make sure that the utilities are cut off of our names by the end of the month. And there's stuff that belong to other people. You know how it is when you get a backyard or you get an extra shed and there's nothing in it, and a friend will say, well, hey, I've got this whatever, a car engine, I've got this whatever, a broken down ski mobile. There was a soda machine back there. Could I just put it in your yard, in your like back 40 for a month or two? And 8 years later, it's still there. So all of that, it's tracking down the persons that own several pieces of it and politely informing them for the 19,000th time in the last 2 years. This time there is a deadline, folks. You've got until August 31st to get that stuff out of that property or it's gone. Like gone like a big ass bird gone. Gone like gone in 60 seconds gone. Gone as in ain't nothing that old girl can do about it because we're several states away and we've been telling you for the last several years to come and get your stuff. Bizarre how that works. Hi, Lars. Yeah. Jeff, he apparently got a place he'd had his eye on for quite some time, and he decided that he was going to grab it before the price kind of went ridiculous or something else happened. So, it's like, yeah, basically lots of text and phone calls coming back and forth saying, yeah, I found this. And, you know, because we already told them a while back, whatever we have that's still left there, you're welcome to sell it or make it go away because if we don't remember we have it, we don't need it anyway. But other stuff migrated onto that property over the years that belongs to third parties through that bizarre things that happens when you have space and you don't make sure that everybody stays away from it. So we got a lot to fix up there. There are fires somewhere, I'm assuming. Funny enough, several days ago while the boys were down here, we had some smoky, unpleasant air obstructing our views in the distance. Figured somebody was having a fire again. When the Canadians had one going really badly, life got miserable here. But anyway, that's what's going on. And we've got several people visiting over the next couple of weeks and a whole bunch of stuff to do. So, exactly, honey bunny. It's amazing how it happens. I mean, at one point, we had a motorcycle, we had two engines back there that purported to be Porsche engines. There was an old Dr. Pepper soda machine from like the 1980s, several pieces of dead mining equipment that he had invented and stopped using and just allowed to kind of begin to deteriorate. Um, a trailer made out of the bed of an old pickup truck. Things like that. It's amazing what shows up. Oh, wow. That sounds really cool, Rock. Don't know if there's much in Duluth, but you'll probably enjoy it. Minnesota, you're going to find cheese. I mean, that I will say. There's great cheese in that part of the country. Hmm. Yeah, we had a smoky. Right now, it's really clear out there, but probably 3 or 4 days ago, we had distant smoke all around us, lower visibility, lower air quality, and a really, really vibrant sunset. So I don't know where the fires were, but the fires were going fairly well at that point. There were a couple of fires down by the Yellowstone area, but none of them affected our trip, thank God. So that was good. But basically, I'm helping Parrish, coordinate stuff with his move down there in Tucson, and we've got people visiting and all this chaos. You know how that goes. Here he is. I've been explaining to them that phenomenon that happens when you have a backyard. People say, "Can I just leave something small here for like a week?" And 7 years later, it's still there. We've been discussing how that happens.
Sightseeing in Duluth, Minnesota, huh, Rock?
Yeah, I told him he's got to get some cheese.
I'm not sure. That's pretty close to Sault Ste. Marie, isn't it? Mosquitoes, trillions upon trillions of mosquitoes. Not up here. Few, not much.
Probably there.
Anyhow, so when it comes to mining, see, we got a couple confidential things running around right now. Some that are kind of peripherally confidential. In other words, we can kind of show what we're doing, but we can't give any details of who, what, where, and why. And that's going to be what I'm doing here, for example.
And I do actually have a video camera in the cart on Amazon. I'm waiting till the Social Security comes in, and I'm waiting to see if Amazon will give us a discount.
She has a plan.
I have a plan.
I say we
What
could
does the plan work?
we could make it work simply with a micro. What do we call those cards?
Micro USB.
No, it's the card, the little plastic thing you stick in the camcorder.
Micro SD.
Micro SD chip, yeah. A micro SD to USB adapter thing, yeah. Yep, you're both right. But anyhow, so with that adapter, I could do it. All it was a matter of getting it into the computer. Everything else on the camera works just fine.
Does anybody know why Panasonic is discontinuing so many models?
Eva has a question. Does anyone know why Panasonic is discontinuing so many models of camcorders? Inquiring minds want to know. I would not be surprised, Chris. I say, I'm not sure how much those things cost. About how much does one of those little adapter things cost, Chris?
Like $15.
Yeah. And I say that to me would be the way to start.
We're going to get one anyway, just so we have it.
Yep. Yep. Honey Bunny says the same thing, about $15. We'll just go to Walmart. eBay, Amazon. Yeah, shouldn't be hard. Best Buy, Honey Bunny. This is a local phrase here. It's very commonly used in a variety of situations, but it all boils down to the same thing. Honey Bunny, this is Helena. Best Buy. I laugh upon this Best Buy, of which you speak from
What's
other places. Best Buy.
Yeah, what's the Best Buy? I haven't seen one in years.
Yeah, well, yeah, since we left Tucson. Yep.
Well, the way shit's been going bankrupt, you never know.
Yeah, it's a minor issue. It just, God, we've been trying to do so many things. And the weird thing about the GoPro, every single time I turn it on again after turning it off so I can record something, it turns on with the picture in a different aspect. Upside down, mirror image, sideways, landscape is a portrait instead of landscape. I tell her, I imagine when you turn the GoPro on, whatever orientation it's in at the moment it starts activating is probably the orientation it sets the and it's always picture. In the right orientation. I explained that. Well, it never did it to me. Okay. I have no idea. I have turned it on a bunch of times, like over at Yellowstone. That's what I had in my pocket. It never did it to me. That's all I can say. Anyhow, we got it dealt with. But yeah, that was fun. So anyhow, we have a situation. Yeah, I'm guessing something like that, Chris. Let me see. I am waiting for some assays to come back to get an idea. We had some samples, and the class for today is basically going to be, and why is the thing having problems? Don't tell me it locked. Didn't want to do it. That's pretty good, Rock. Um, but anyhow, so we had some people bring by a sample, and uh, this sample was from out of town. The people who dropped it off didn't know much about it, except it was from a dump, and some guy picked some stuff up, and there wasn't very much. Let me see if there's any of it. I should have the exemplars here. That isn't. That isn't. Yeah, here's the exemplars. So anyhow, I I was given this sample, and they say basically, okay, what can be done with it? Well, of course, that's a little bit ambiguous, but that's my job. Anyhow, here's probably the clearest example. Let's see, it's kind of out of focus, I think. Let's try this. Wow. Well, that is sucks. Let's see. Can we get it like that? And what's the best? Anyhow, this is iron pyrite in here, and it's got a fair amount of iron pyrite in it. There also appears to be some gray pyrites, some kind of gray sulfides, which I presume are probably um, galena, but yeah, good luck on proving it at the with the stuff here. Again, here we got pyrites in here. So anyhow, with hardness testing, it's mainly quartz. This stuff here fizzes and is easily scratched. I don't think it's arsenopyrite because it's a dark gray. It's not that bright, shiny, silvery gray that you typically get with arsenopyrite. So, anyhow, this creates a setup then. Okay, a rock. I don't even know what kind of formation. It's obviously vein rock, but I mean, I don't know much else except it came from a dump. Okay, now this creates a situation. You have a sample. Okay, and what do you need to do in terms of extractive metallurgy? Okay, well, the first thing that you want to do with any sample is to uh, take the crystals are pretty small, Rock. I'm not sure if I can identify any that precisely. Smells like pyrites, that's for sure. Can't tell. That's typical pyrite striations in color. There's the other stuff. Looks like it could be cubic where it isn't messed up. Let me just try scratching it with a fingernail. I think maybe I gouged it with my fingernail, but let me try it again. Looks like it's kind of working it. My fingernails working into a groove and making it hard to tell. Pretty soft in there. But anyhow, so I say I've seen arsenopyrite before, and yeah, it's pretty small. And I don't know, Chris. Don't know, Chris. It's an unknown. Here's a rock. What is it? Okay. That's how much information I have. Okay. So, since I am primarily interested gold and silver, I'm interested in precious metals. Okay. So, the first thing that I did, you look at it. Okay. You try and get some idea what you got. You take your knife, you try and scratch it. You take and put a little acid on it, see if it fizzes. Those sort of things that, give you an idea what kind of rock types you're dealing with. That's about my level of expertise on stuff like that. I mean, I can tell a granite from a quartz crystal, no problem, but nevertheless. So you do a few simple tests like that. I took the rocks, and if you saw the video I posted yesterday, you can see there's a lot of other rocks. There's some that might be useful to identify something. And I took and obtained these 3 samples that to me look to be the most representative. Hey, Mr. Virtue. And then the rest of it just went into the crusher. Okay. Now you want to always save some representative, what I would call exemplars. For example, if I was to show this to Rock or Chris or a good mineralogist or Alex, they could look at this and they could tell me a lot of information. Once you pulverize the crap out of it, good luck. Okay. You lose information when you crush it. So always set aside some exemplars so that you have that information still there. Then I crushed it, and I crushed it pretty fine. The RC46 has certain limitations on how fine it can crush. The jaw crusher only crushes to 3/8 minus roughly, okay, which isn't good enough for anything. The rolls crushers do a pretty good job between the rolls, but at the ends of the rolls, between that and the housing, there's a gap. And of course, that gap has gotten bigger with time. Well, I'm saying they're equivalent. Okay. And so the crush that comes out of a single pass in the RC46 is not very fine. If you had a disc grinder or something like that, then you could just take it to that. I don't happen to have one. The Stutenroth is totally too big and uncleanable for this operation. So what I do is I just run it through the RC46 a couple more times. This does 2 things. Number one, it crushes it finer. The larger rocks tend to wind up the next time between the rollers, get crushed. So it crushes it finer. And also, each time I do that, it kind of homogenizes it. Okay? So that gives me a better sample for the next stuff down the road. It's finer and it's more homogeneous. Okay? Now, at that point, you have to have a mental plan as to what you're going to do. And that's where you start splitting off samples for various things. First thing you do is you split off a sample for assay. Now, if this was a completely unknown, let's suppose you were out hiking up a mountain and you saw a vein of quartz with some iron pyrite in it in an area not known for gold. Hey, Richard, how's it going? Then the before you do a whole lot of other stuff, you might want to have an assay done. If you're in a hurry and relatively cheap, you might try doing. First of all, mine is currently in Lauren's shop and needs work, and secondly of all, it is also sort of thing you got to clean it out. It's hard to perfectly clean, and it's not really good for small samples. Okay, um, if you had like a Cobra crusher or something like that, you could do that. Put the samples together. That could work also. In my case, it's just simpler to run it through the RC46. I got it running, no big deal, and it just slurps it up 3 times, in pretty good shape. But anyhow, so first thing you might want to know is how much gold is it. Now, you can send it off for assay. That's going to take you time and money. You can hand pan. I will typically hand pan anyway, no matter what, just because that's the way I am. And if there is any free gold, then you should be able to visualize it. Anything coarser than 500 mesh, you ought to be able to get enough you can at least see some of it. Now, if you've got a sulfide ore, you may have a fair amount of gold in the sulfides that's not free. And so you could wind up not seeing doodly squat in the pan except sulfides and still have a pretty good ore. Okay? So the hand panning lets me visualize it. Yes, there was detectable free gold. Okay? It was for hard rock reasonably coarse, like 100 mesh. Okay? That's coarser than I often run into. So that's a good sign. The other thing is because this person was in a hurry to get more information, I also crushed I'm not crushed. I panned a couple of batches through the pan, two of my scoops in the pan, and I did it several times to get a heavy concentrate and a tailings, a fairly clean tailings. Okay. And so I went and basically kept repanning the material until I saw that the level of sulfides in the product really drop, because there was so much sulfides. It really took several times to get it knocked down a bit. That is correct, Intern. The sulfides can encapsulate. They can also, you can have the gold precipitate on the surface of the sulfides. So while it's not encapsulated, it's nevertheless attached to the sulfides. You have to assume, until proven otherwise, that the sulfides and the gold are very tightly bound up and associated. Okay. That's the assumption you should start with. Okay. So you go ahead and make a concentrate and a tailings. Those also got shipped off to Mr. Hiddle for fire assay. Currently, I do not have any results just yet. The next thing I did, again, this person would like to have as much information as quickly as possible. So I did a bottle roll. And I think it's still over there. Now, a bottle roll is the simplest way to simulate an agitation leach. First of all, it's in a controlled, it's a sealed container. So all your chemicals, your sample, and everything are in fact contained. You don't have to worry about losses and stuff like that. I'm not sure, Chris. It wouldn't surprise me. 100 mesh is pretty coarse for hard rock gold. For all you guys who are placer specialists, 100 mesh is coarse for us hard rock guys. Okay? Anyhow, so here we have a sample of the material. That's 500 grams of material and 1 liter of water, some, lime to help adjust the pH, and some Eco Goldex. This stuff was consuming lime. The pH kept dropping over time. You take this bottle, you put the lid on tight, you lay it on a roller. There's 2 rods that are turning the same direction, just like a rock polishing tumbler. Okay, but in my case, I can put 8 of these on it at once. They're pieces of 1/2-inch conduit is what they actually are. A 1/2-inch conduit with swamp cooler bearings. No, there's no surfactant in here. That is a natural foaming. I don't recall seeing much of that before. So I'm not sure exactly why it's foaming, but it sure is foaming. This has been sitting on the counter for a couple hours.
Going on in there.
I have no clue. But anyhow, so the sulfides are expected to be somewhat acidic. Rock agrees with you, little one. The sulfides you can assume are be acidic because they tend to make sulfuric acid. Okay. And so here we have a test where it was rolling for over a day and monitoring it, putting in some chemicals, and then took a sample of this liquid, took it to the local lab here to have it analyzed. So what this does, anybody says alkaline earths tend to be somewhat surfactant by nature. I don't know about that. I don't know about hydrogen releasing out of the rock. I'm thinking rock is probably correct in terms of carbon dioxide from the lime and the acids. And Chris says, yeah, you got some neutralization plus some clays forming stuff, probably some sulfates and hydroxides, which tend to get forming. Yeah. Or as I say, it gets messy. But yeah. So anyhow, sample of this is sent off. Again, this is not the way you would usually do it. You would usually do it in sequence. First, you assay it to find out what's in it. Okay. If the assay comes back good, then you might do you typically wait. Well, the hand panning doesn't matter anyhow. That's so cheap. But anyhow, so we go and hand pan and stuff. At $45 a pop, do you really want to assay the concentrates and the tailings until you know if there's gold in it? If you didn't see in your hand pan, you'd probably go, I'll wait. In this case, again, time is of the importance, so we went and shipped it off. Okay. Now, we should have the results back in time for the person that supplied this for his purposes, but he's in a hurry to get some answers. The cons fee on that. I didn't specifically tell him, which I realized later was a stupid thing. But he should be able to see, and he hasn't called me, so we'll see. It shouldn't be extraordinarily expensive, but it might be more expensive. I would not be surprised, but I would be surprised if he did it without calling me first, especially as I sent him the payment with it. So if he wanted to get paid more, he would need to call me up and say, I need some more money for that. I don't know. I should have also said that it was a sulfide ore because Chris is absolutely correct. These things are not as easy to assay as oxide ores. And that was my error. You're absolutely right, Chris.
Yeah, I think we owe Mr. Hiddle an apology.
Well, why don't I call him right now? Let's see.
I'm sorry, I should have double checked what you were up to.
Let's see. There we go. Another lesson. No, I'm not a solicitor. Yeah, if there's anything unusual in your ore, you should always tell the assayer. It makes a difference in many cases. Hey, Lawrence, this is Keith Bowen. By the by the way, I just want to mention I'm on a live stream right now, so that what I'm saying can be heard by other people. I'm not going to do anything really weird or whatever. I just want you to be informed. Those samples I sent you, those yeah, they got some sulfides in them, but a fair amount of sulfides. Exactly, which is why, as was pointed out to me, and I'm explaining to the peeps on here, yeah, you need to let the assayer know if there's any changes, anything unusual, anything specific that you can. For example, if you normally send them quartz and this is a limestone, you need to let your assayer know because it makes a difference. Yeah, absolutely, it makes a big difference. Yeah, the one that's just a sample, um, that there's a name on it that I can't, you know, divulge to other people here. But anyhow, that one is just the raw ore, and I would guess it's running 5 to 15% total sulfides. Looks like it's mostly iron pyrite to me, maybe a little galena in there. Um, I do not know. I don't see that bright, shiny, silvery arsenopyrite thing that I'm used to, but I really don't know. And there is a little bit of carbonate, but not much. It's mainly quartz. There's a little bit. Yeah, yeah. The stuff that's cons is in fact cons. Stuff that says tails is just tails. Same head sample, and then I just panned it and sent you the two fractions. Yeah, some guy wanted me to do some stuff for him, so that's why it's a little odd. That's also why you didn't get the check from the usual person, but a money order because I don't know. It's the U.S. Postal Service. I don't know if you can trust them or not anymore. Don't use yellow freight. They just, yeah, exactly. But anyhow, so I wanted to let you know that. And like I said, it's a great lesson for the guys watching here. Always keep the assayer. It's better to give him too much information than too little. Yeah, I say, if it's more than he needs to know, he can ignore it. It's from a dump. I don't know more than that. I did not take it. Somebody brought it to me. When I panned it, there was some gold in there, not a whole bunch, but it was fairly coarse. I'm guessing about 100 mesh. I didn't measure it under my microscope, but it wasn't super fine. Okay, it's not that 500 mesh sort of stuff. It's coarser than that. Yep. For hard rock, it's chunky. Exactly. Yeah, I really have no idea. and it looked fairly dark for gold. It wasn't bright, light, shiny, bright yellow. It may have some other stuff in, like maybe a little copper or something. I can't tell, but it was kind of dark-ish for gold. So it's either really pure or it's got a little bit of something in it, but not a whole lot of silver. I can tell you that. Alrighty. Yep. Yep. Anyhow, if you need any extra money, let me know. Okay. Bucket full. Oh, get the monopoly money. Okay. I used to be a trillionaire. I had a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. So, somebody traded it for a large bag of kettle corn. I was selling kettle corn at the time. I gave it to my Swedish friend. But yeah, I say so. That's um, one of the deals there. Yeah, I don't know where the dollar's going here soon, but that could get interesting. Anyhow, that's what the oh, I hope everything goes very well, sir. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Lawrence. It can be sent to both. It's not confidential per se. He's aware of what's going on. Appreciate it. Alrighty, thank you. You bet. Bye bye. So they're gonna be doing a little stuff on him on Wednesday, so he'll be a little bummed. So we'll go ahead and um, hopefully he'll get the samples to me tomorrow or the day after. Chris also brings up a good point. Your laboratory is using crushing and grinding equipment as part of its sample preparation setup. If you send them a very high grade material, and it really doesn't matter if it's cons or not, although usually it would have to be cons to get in the range where they're got to clean up their prep line. But if for any reason you believe that it's going to be uh, excessive, like over 5 ounces per ton, again, make sure you let the lab know that. I think, what was that um,
The
Act Labs
$2,000
$2,000 cleaning
ALS,
fee? Yeah.
if they had to clean their line.
Yep.
And they couldn't even give you the limit at first.
Yep. And yeah, that was really funny because when I asked the lab person there, okay, so if it's too constant, if it's got too much gold in it, you can charge me a $2,000 cleaning fee. What constitutes give me a definition of too much gold? And she couldn't, it took her a while to figure that out. If you exceed a certain limit, it's going to cost you $2,000. What's the limit?
Oh, the Babylon Bee has spoken up.
What little one?
Biden makes things up to seventh grandchild by appointing her head of a Ukrainian shell company.
Anyhow, so that's a situation where when you are dealing with a lab, make sure they're fully informed in writing. Okay. If you don't do it in writing, the agreement's worth the paper it's printed on. So anyhow, that's some stuff on your assay lab and sample prep and stuff. So now we're basically going to be in a little bit of a holding pattern, waiting for those results to come back in. And again, usually you wouldn't be doing a bottle roll before you did the assays. That's not the way you would usually do it. It would be sequential. If you had a laboratory that had like a very large minimum Like Act Labs used to have a $300 minimum. So that's a situation where you might do that, where you just kind of add a bunch of stuff together just to get above the $300 minimum. Because, if you send in one assay and you got to pay $300 and then you get it back as another, yeah, you might want to do that. Yeah, Chris brings up a good point too. If you don't have a lot of familiarity with the lab or whatever, you can send them some blank samples too. you know, uh, something that doesn't have any gold in it. Now that can also be thing, like the infamous Jeff Williams getting gold from um, Home Depot sand. That's perfectly possible to happen. It could happen, but yeah, you send out. Act Labs now has $100 minimum. Okay, yeah, they've got good prices per test, but if you got a big minimum, it just kills you. Hiddle is a little higher per test, $45 a sample, but I think it was almost 30 to 35 with Active when you figured the sample prep and everything else. So he's not much more expensive, and he's a lot faster. Okay. Again, I sent these off. When did I send them off?
2 days ago.
Let's see. What's the date here?
I believe you sent them off Friday or Thursday.
No, this wasn't there. Over here, this one. Let's see. Oh, that's turned it upside down. Where's the date? 7/28. Yep.
Yeah, 3 days ago.
So sent him off 3 days ago. He's already got them. He'll get them theoretically done tomorrow, and I'll get the results. So, if it went to Act Labs, they wouldn't even have the samples prepped yet. Now you can pay them a rush fee, but that gets pretty expensive too. We have cross-checked Hiddle against other labs. I know it was against the Assayer in Coeur d'Alene, and also
ASL, I think it was.
Global.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the price you pay for going to a big lab that's processing a lot of samples. They're good. They get the proper procedures. The price is nice. However, it's going to be a while, unless I'm sure you could pay Act Labs a fee to get it done quickly. I would hesitate to even guess what that fee might be. But let's say Hiddle is pretty quick. And so that's why we generally use him. But we have cross-checked him. If, for example, if these samples came back 10 or 20 ounces to the ton, one thing I'd immediately send it to a different lab, okay, just for verification. Because when you're making important decisions, you want to make sure you're making it with correct information. Yeah. Chris is absolutely correct. The big companies will usually send like 1 out of every 10 to a different lab. Again, they're not in a big time hurry. They've got multi-million-dollar budgets, and they're looking at risking $1 billion on a project, then it's makes perfect sense for them. I mean, their time frames are years, so they just get in and they're just sending these samples all the time, and the drills. He's got to get another, 3 weeks of work done before they need to worry about what he's got to do next. It works fine for them. For a small guy like us, you want it fast, you want it cheap, you want it reliable. Okay. Mr. Hiddle seems to be all three. But if I was going to be risking a lot of money, like we're going to say, yep, we're going to build a mill for this shit. No, we'd be having to do verification. Now, one way that you can do a verification, and this is what we have. See this? If, let us say, Mr. Hiddle says 1 ounce to the ton, okay? This says it was 1 ounce to the ton. You have a verification, a completely independent verification. If, on the other hand, he says it's 1 ounce to the ton, this says 0.02 ounces per ton, you've either got a really serious extraction problem or you've got an issue that you need to resolve. Okay? Don't assume one person's right, the other person's wrong. The most expensive case I know of that is the Hubble Space Telescope. When they were building the mirror for the Hubble Space Telescope, boy, my tongue is really having problems. The exact curvature and polish of that mirror were extraordinarily important and extraordinarily precise. So the contract specified that they were supposed to be checking it with 2 different instruments. They were two different instruments from 2 different manufacturers using 2 different actual details of the mechanism for checking that, And so they have these 2 instruments, and they found out one was really a lot easier to use than the other. And they decided, well, we'll make a little change to the procedure. We'll go ahead and we'll use this to grind and polish the mirror, and then before we turn it over, we'll use the other one to check it. It says we're supposed to use 2 instruments. Well, we use 2 instruments. Okay. So when it was all said and done, they went, check. Instrument 1 says, it's great, perfect. This is the best mirror ever made. They take the other instrument, they sit there and measure it, and it says, that mirror sucks. The polish is great, but it's got spherical aberration. You polished it wonderfully to the wrong curvature. Now, this is where a prudent person would say, time out.
Aren't we supposed to be discussing mining?
We're talking samples and stuff like that, little one. Okay. Let's call up the manufacturers, get their reps down here. This is a $3 billion project. Everything is hinging on that mirror. And you got 2 instruments giving you 2 different numbers. Same thing of us, we have 2 labs giving you 2 different numbers. You don't know why. All you know is one would be great, the other sucks big time. They didn't do that. They just decided, we like these results, we're going with that. Well, as everyone knows, that was the wrong call. Okay? What happened was, in the instrument they were using, somebody had put a part in backwards. It had a socket that was like a square, so you could literally peel it out, turn it 180 degrees, put it back in, and it looked the same, but it wasn't. So if you have a significant discrepancy on a significant issue, resolve the discrepancy before you go on. Okay? Don't head down the path that looks nice, that would be awesomely profitable, if the other lab says, dude, there's nothing there. Okay? And that's just a general procedure. Don't rely on wishful thinking. 3 good labs, 1 well-prepped sample, you should get 3 results that agree within a certain level. Depends on how coarse the gold is and stuff.
No, this gold looks pretty coarse for hard rock.
And that's it. Rock says, in the end, both labs come out within a gnat's ass. And that's fine. But if, let's say, and again, this is one of those things that if it doesn't matter, who cares? If neither number is profitable, who gives a damn? It's like they both say it's shit. One just says it's worse shit than the other guy. Okay, don't worry about it. But if it's important, make sure you've got the correct number to make the correct decision. Okay? It's amazing how many times supposedly intelligent people with a bunch of letters after their names make stupid decisions. Being stupid doesn't require you being unintelligent. Intelligent people and some qualified people can still be amazingly stupid at times. So that's an important principle there. But what I've in process right now is I'm doing the gravity separation. When you hand pan, you are doing a gravity separation. If you take a sample and you hand pan it, and you get a concentrate and a set of tailings, then you repan the tailings, and you don't get any concentrates to speak of. Those concentrates are very easy to acquire by gravity separation. That's what you've proven there. Now the question is, are they any use? Is the gold or the valuable mineral in the concentrates? Okay. So in this case, because there was so much in the way of sulfides, and I was working a pretty small pan, I had to do it 5 or 6 times before the second to the last pan. I really saw the amount of sulfides go down because there was so much sulfides that pan could hold, then the rest went out. And so I had to do that, say, about 5 times. Where, I was getting almost the same amount of sulfides each time. And then I did one and it got much less. Okay, fine. Did the next one, almost nothing. It's like, good, it's done. Now I've got tailings and I've got concentrates. In theory, and that's a big in theory, those concentrates should have almost all the gold if we crush it to get enough to give mineral liberation, and the gold is gravity separatable, or the gold is in the sulfides. If those are true, then it should all be with the sulfides to speak. Very little left in the tailings. If, on the other hand, there's a bunch left in the tailings, that's important to know. In that case, a gravity separation is probably not going to work worth a crap. That's not uncommon. The gold in hard rock can be extremely fine, completely not amenable to gravity separation. Okay? Therefore, what you need to do is reevaluate your theoretical flow sheet. Gravity is always the simplest. Okay? But there's other things you can use. Most notably in gold, if gravity won't do it, look at leaching or a combination of both. When you have a sulfide ore like this, another thing you should be looking at is if you make a gravity concentrate of these sulfides, can you then just sell the concentrate at a low toll cost, get paid for it, and make your money that way? You can save a whole lot of hassle and money and potentially permitting if you can sell those sulfides. If, for example, this was chalcopyrite, but we were worried more about the gold, and you could do a gravity or a flotation concentrate, get good recovery, get all the gold and silver in there, you might be able to sell that concentrate to a copper smelter and get the vast majority of your gold and silver credited to you, because they're going to get the copper anyway, and they might pay you like 90% of the gold, 80% of the silver. You'd have to check around and see, but I mean, that's what oh, what's that? Republic Metals does stuff like that. So you just you got to understand what options are available and then start doing the test to see what options might make sense. Then you can proceed to a little bit larger testing. All of this stuff here was done on a sample about this big. You know, that whole sample could almost have fit in this jar. That's how little rock there was. That also lets me know that that is not a reliable sample. Okay. All of these numbers that I get are just kind of provisional samples.
And we knew that it had to be a grab sample from a dump because there were no clean faces on it that you'd get from chipping it off an ore body,
Yep.
off an actual rock.
Yeah. Chris is absolutely correct. Now, here's another option that you should consider if you have a sulfide ore. Bingo. Okay. Now, you create a concentrate from this sulfide ore. Flotation, gravity, doesn't really matter. You've got a heavy mineral concentrate now. Then the question becomes, do you ship it as is, or do you do a little secondary processing before you ship it off? I know a gentleman in Oregon. They're making basically an iron pyrite concentrate that's rich in gold. I forget what the concentrate is running. It seems to me it was like 20 ounces to the ton or something. And they were planning on using Eco Goldex to leach that concentrate to get the easy to get gold out of it and then sell it to the refiner to deal with the rest. That can be a good option, especially, let's say you had an arsenal pyrite ore. I don't know what the prices are now. But I do know that at the time he was saying their arsenal pyrite had to be shipped out of the country for processing, and they were going to pay a 50% toll. So let us say, for the sake of argument, that you could recover 1/3 of that gold by pre-leaching the concentrates before you ship them overseas. Okay. Or through a gravity separation. It doesn't much matter. You can do, if you've got free gold in a sulfide con, you can do a gravity separation. But let's say 1/3 of the gold, you can easily scalp that before you sell it. So let's say you've got 100 ounces of gold and you ship that overseas at 50%. You get 50 ounces. Now, if you take that 100 ounces and skim off 1/3, 33 ounces, so now you're only giving them an entrained gold of 67 ounces at 50%. So that gives us
33.5.
33 and a half. So 33.5. Add these two together, you now get 66.5 ounces instead of 50 ounces. Another thing is, in this case here, those 50 ounces are usually taxable. Okay? This 33 would be taxable. This 33 here would be, what do they call that? Deferred taxable. Okay? It is not taxable at the time that you get it. Because it's your gold, you just put it in your pocket. So it's not taxable. Therefore, the second option may be much nicer. Yep. Say, Rock was, he's talking about a particular place he worked where they did all kinds of stuff and they made money everywhere. So if there's gold in one of your products, you got to look at it and say, does this make sense? Should I throw that away or not? We had heap leaching over where I worked that it was amazingly good ore to leach. And I mean, we were getting like 80-90% recovery and doing it for $6 a ton total processing cost. That's just hard to beat. But look at the different games you can play. For example, I mean, think of it. Let's suppose you had a used car. Now, you could sell it as a used car. You could fix it up and sell it as a nicer used car. So you got to look and say, what's our parts and labor to add the value of a better running car? You could tear it apart for parts and sell the parts. You could sell it for scrap, or you could take off all the good parts and sell the rest for scrap. There's a lot of different options there.
Or you could trade it for something else.
You could trade it for something else. Yep. I was just watching someone today that somebody wanted to sell a car, and it was an old, like a 69 Ford something or other. I don't know what it was. But anyhow, didn't recognize it. It was like a Fairlane or something, but whatever. So they're sitting there, they're just different. You never know. But this extractive metallurgy stuff, you have lots of options. Sometimes it's really obvious which option you should go with, and if it's not profitable, you should walk away. Other times, you look at the various options and you say, okay, how can we stack these or sequence these to get the most profitable thing, situation, and then see whether or not you should walk away. But never walk away until you've looked at all the options and the permutations that can happen. Okay? So, say just take a look at that rock. At the Red Lake mine, we ran gravity first, then flotation and leaching carbon and pulp. Then we sent the leach rejects to an autoclave in Nevada to cook the sulfides, and then made money again. Okay? That gives you an idea. There's more than one way to get the gold out of the rock. If you don't know, it's probably worthwhile to talk to somebody who does know these things. Like right here, we have a bunch of people. We may not be the best in the world, or some of them seem to be pretty darn good. I know I'm not nearly what you would call top notch. I'm not PhD extractive metallurgist with 30 years experience and stuff. But you can go to a geology department. I mean, here, like at Butte, go to the Center for Advanced Material Processing and have a chat with them. They don't need to necessarily, set up a project or whatever. They seem like people like to talk. A lot of people like to talk. You might notice me. Of course, Bedrock. That's why placer is so much simpler than hard rock. There's so many more options in hard rock, so many more possibilities. It gets complicated. When you're dealing with placer, and, Adam, they're pretty darn good dealing with placer, then it eliminates a lot of possibilities. But you still have, he's dealing in the desert. So pretty much there's dry washing, there's metal detecting, there's different ways of stripping, different amounts of classification, things like that. For example, a lot of, Mr. Virtue, 3 ounces is huge per ton. I mean, heap leach, they'll do it on 1/10 of an ounce per ton. Underground, 1/4 to half. It depends on a number of factors. But for the small scale, if you got 3 ounces, you can usually make a profit. But when you got something like what I break for Bedrock here, let's suppose he came up with a desert placer, an old pediment or something like that, or a paleo channel where he's got a lot of tons that he's got to move, and it's got a good grade, like maybe um, Jeff Williams' underground tunnel there. You know, it seems to be pretty rich stuff. So now he's got to decide: does it need to be crushed or not? What size should be screened to? What do you do with the screen rejects? What do you do with the tailings? You know, for example, if you screen it to a 1/4 inch mesh, which I think is usually, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, about good for dry washing, 1/4 inch or so, you're going to lose anything over a 1/4 inch. You put a metal detector and a trap door on your outfalls from the screen, might make sense. You know, once you've dry washed it, how much is still in there? Does it make sense to do a fine screening and then either re-dry wash it or take those fine screenings and spend the extra money, and in the desert sometimes a lot of extra money, for water processing? The only way to find out is test. Test, test, test. It's annoying, but that's the way it is. And then do the math. But I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things we're looking to identify and understand. So the parameters. What does the rock want to do? How does this want to give me gold? And how much is it going to sit there and fight me? And where is it going to fight me? And how is it going to fight me? Things like that. These are the sort of things that you need to check. Don't argue with the rock. Figure out what it wants to do, and go with it. And it's like your wife. Arguing with your wife is never productive. Okay. You know, figure out how you can work together on something. Exactly, Chris. And if you've got a good placer, you may have rocks of a high grade ore in there too. Around here, a lot of this stream play, it hasn't traveled very far. Okay. You may have chunks of rock that are being kicked off of your screen. That's like, nope, that's good ore. Oops, look at that. That's good ore. You know, hard to tell. But yeah, you got to check everything and try any reasonable possibility. Hey, Red Wing, how's it going? Then do the math. I've got probably at least 2 more samples coming in this summer that I know of that are going to be going through a very similar process. Dave has got a mine in Montana here that he's interested in. There's Jeff Kablock. He's got some stuff near here that he was going to give us some dump material. It all starts in the same place. How much gold? What form is it in? How can I get it out? Once you got those things, then you can sit there and look at the ore body itself. Where is it coming from? Is this a dump? Is this a mine? Is it a vein? Is it more a disseminated ore body? Things like that. You got to figure all that stuff out and do the damn math. And again, I do have a calculator on my. Is that a website there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For those of you who don't have the math and the experience, etc., let's see. I did a calculator. I think that's it. Yep, there it is. Okay. And here is the current link to it. If you go there, there is something called the project checklist instant download, which is exactly that. It basically, if you go to a project you've never been before or something, the things that you need to know. Oh, I've had 10,512 total visitors. Cool. But this is a good checklist if you're going someplace or you got your own project. Take a look at that and see what is important. And then I also have a mining project economic estimator. And the purpose of that is to allow somebody who's not highly experienced or really good at math to just input raw numbers. How high, how wide, how deep is the ore body? What's the ore grade? What's your extraction percentage? Sometimes you just throw in industry standard numbers, 50% recovery of the gold, things like this. What's your cost? Well, we're surface mining small scale, so I'm going to go $20 a ton. So I punch those things in, and it gives you an answer. So does this make sense or not? Are you looking at a profit or a loss situation? You know, and again, it's not infallible. It's not magic. It's just doing a lot of calculations behind the scenes so that you can punch in raw numbers and get some kind of an idea. If that idea is looking pretty good, then you got to get into a lot more detail. If it says it's crap, there's no way this is going to work, walk away. Okay. Another thing you can do if you got an old mine or something like that, something that looks interesting, you can see about selling the claim. I wouldn't, and I never do, and I would not recommend you saying anything misleading. I didn't want to say just to say it, but misleading. But I mean, there might be a guy who wants to buy a claim that's got gold on it. No, I'm never going to make money on it, but what the hell? I love it. Or whatever. Just so long as you're honest with them, that's fine. It might be one of these things where, I've got a little showing. There's a little old mine there. I don't know if there's anything else there, but that's all I know. If you want to buy it, fine, but I can't figure out how to make money on it, so I'm walking away. Again, you can recoup some of your money that way, possibly. I don't know. It's not my game.
Lease the thing to somebody for $150 a month.
Yeah, or as Eva says, lease it to someone for $150 a month. Again, that's a possibility, especially with a placer claim. Okay, you might work something out where, let's say you had, let's also a placer claim. Let's say it has decent ore or whatever, but it's kind of small and it's in an area where you're not going to be able to get the permits for a mining operation for any kind of decent amount of money. It's going to cost you $500,000 permitting or something. Okay. One thing you might do too, you can have people come in and do it and get their own gold and pay you to visit, or you could lease that to somebody who does that with other people, and say, and this is the sort of thing that, look at the various options and see if there's something you can do. And I'm not even going to say that makes you money, that makes you happy. Okay. You may not need to turn a profit to find a value in it. Okay. So, look at that, but look at all the options. Okay, now I can see we're starting to lose people, etc. here. So does anyone have any other subjects to bring up that might be they could use some help with or need some information or whatever? Because I pretty well talked this one out. You're going to spend the entire season. I think it limits people who are not moderators to a certain amount. How's ladder track? Well, that was kind of funny. I had enough parts to make almost 2 full 5-foot sections of ladder track. I was only short a couple of rungs, and I had the raw materials for that. Not a problem. I can cut those and shape those to where they'll fit just fine. So I got all that stuff over at, it was over at Lauren's house because we were working on it on this winter. I hauled it to another place where I had access to a welder, and I was just welding away just fine. I got the first set of ladder track done. Going on the second one, got all the pieces tacked together, and had got one side almost well. I had one rung to go, and ran out of wire in the welder. And it was after 6 or 7 o'clock or whatever, and so I just had to call it a night, and I haven't got back to it yet. Again, this week's going to tend to be really busy, but next week, all I need is about 10 more minutes of welding, and it'll be done. And luckily I knew it was low on wire when I went and was setting up. I looked and it's like, oh man, this thing's pretty damn low on wire. So I've got 2 different designs of ladder track sections. First of all, I have stopped making 10-foot sections. They're hard to handle. They're not as flexible. And so I'm just going with straight 5-foot sections. I've got 2 2-foot sections. Those are temporary. As I dig 2 feet deep, I put one of those on. That way we can lower the carriage more. Then once I get another couple feet, we put the other one on. Then I get another couple feet, pull those 2 off, put on a piece of 5-foot stuff. Okay. In this case, it's flux core, so I couldn't run out of gas. But yeah, exactly. So anyhow, with the ladder track, these are 5-foot sections, and there's a rung a half a foot from one end. Let's see if I can do this to where it looks reasonable or not. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close. Okay, so there's a section of ladder track. Okay, and got bolt holes drilled in the side so I can put connectors on and hook it up. However, because I've got this decline that's getting fairly deep and everything, we put that second cable on in a shift block. Because of that, we have a situation where the second cable has to be anchored somewhere. The ladder track is the obvious point. So the different sections of ladder track have braces here, and that cable will hook here. Okay. So this is a little different section. We're getting to where I need to rehook that cable to something deeper. So I looked at that wire and I thought, I better build that one first. And you know what? I was right. For once, I was right. Yay! But as I say, it's one of those deals where it's no big deal. We got to go back to top of the hill this weekend, it looks like. We have enough material to get most of, if not a full batch, in the agitation tank right now. I have no idea what NR233 is. I presume that's a kind of flux core wire. But anyhow, so next time we go back to Montana B, we'll have this section of ladder track. There you go, Chris. And real quick, we're going to be talking with Jeff Kablock about his stuff too. So I really don't know. Oh, and we still have another thing over there. We found something somewhere that looks interesting. So we need to do a little more sampling and stuff on that, and probably finish the work. We have a discovery stake in the ground, but we probably need to do some more on that. You ready, little one?
Yeah, and you forgot to put up your sign, dude.
See that board? That sign will be covering important stuff, information, and thingy poos.
The goddess is here. Hi, everybody. This has been a totally and completely non-eventful news week. If we skip the testimony by Devin Archer that happened in front of the house anyway. But yeah, that was totally non-eventful.
Yellow freight.
And Yellow just kind of essentially going poof. And apparently there was a coup in Niger as opposed to Nigeria. There was a coup in Niger. This may actually have an impact on gold prices, so bear with me here, okay? They done had this coup thing that happened. And they decided in the midst of this coup thing that France decided, I should say, in the midst of this coup thing, that they did not like a coup occurring, so they were going to withhold aid. The new leaders of Niger decided in the midst of this coup thing that since France was going to withhold aid and other money, they were going to withhold gold and uranium. Now, here's the thing, folks. For some bizarre and unaccountable reason, the French have cornered the market on gold from Niger at pretty much spot or less prices, okay? That's been going on for some time. It is something that of all people, that female in charge of Italy has been making noises about since she got into office. She pointed out it's a little bit bizarre how these European countries manage to tie up metal production in foreign nations and get their hands on a lot of bargain basement metals while the natives that are doing all the work get the short end of the stick financially. People got a little bit upset with her. So meanwhile, back to our friend Macron over there in France. The French didn't want the coup thing. They said, you need to put everything back the way it was, or we're not going to give you any money. The people in Niger and the government said, well, then we're not going to give you any cheap gold, and we're not going to give you any uranium either. Now, the problem with this is a couple of things. First of all, the French are quite shirty and very annoyed that they're going to lose their discounted gold. And second of all, the French had best be worrying a little bit about the uranium side of this, because it turns out, believe it or not, people, that the French are one of the largest buyers of uranium from that part of the world. In fact, 1 in 3 light bulbs in France is lit by uranium indirectly through nuclear power that comes from down there. So yeah, the funniest part of this whole thing, it would be hysterically funny if it wasn't absolutely shameful and as good an example of the benefits of modern colonialism for the people colonizing that I have seen so far in the 20th century on this regard. It turns out that only about 1/4 of the entire country of Niger actually has electricity themselves. They have crap for infrastructure down there. They have crap for electricity down there. They have crap for all kinds of things down there. These things are non-existent in this country. All of their wealth and treasure, so to speak, is being sent to France, among other places, which is rather fascinating, really, because you would think if you're selling products as valuable as gold and uranium, well, now you would think, wouldn't you, that maybe there'd be some nice things happening in terms of prosperity in your country. So in the midst of all this, The other African nations have been watching the situation here. And a couple of the other African nations were like, well, yeah, one of the reasons we have so many problems down here is, first of all, this whole colonialism thing going on with places like France and China coming in, our friends, the Panda Patrol, stealing everybody's resources for pennies on the dollar and backing people into corners where they give them all kinds of loans that look really pretty out the door, but we all know what happens a few years down the road there. Well, it turns out that a lot of these places are having energy infrastructure problems because, for some bizarre and unaccountable reason, developed nations are paying them big money not to burn coal and not to create infrastructure. Yeah, odd how that works. When you consider that the single largest polluter in the world happens to be Pandaland. So one has to wonder how it is that we are giving money to little places in Africa to keep the lights off. And we ain't saying jack squat about the 800-pound panda in the room, but what else is new? Anyway, so in the middle of all this nonsense, apparently this whole coup started because the folks that were doing the cooing in Niger were having demonstrations in front of the French embassy, waving flags that were the colors of none other than Mad Vlad the Invader for some bizarre and unaccountable reason. And our dearly beloved friends in NATO are making noises about how all this unrest going on down there just in Africa just quite simply should not be tolerated. They may start sending sternly worded letters. No. They may even make pronouncements. With any luck, they don't decide to actually start a war over this, but I put very, very little trust in princes, especially the ones that we're dealing with right now. Be that as it may, it will be interesting to see what happens to Niger's gold now that it is not going to be going to France. Who's going to be getting it? What's going to happen to it? How much money are they going to get for it? These are all very pressing questions. Oh, and in case anybody's interested, there was some sort of a large rally or kerfluffle of some kind in South Africa where they were talking about killing Boers and white farmers again, but I'm sure that was just rhetoric. So one never knows what's going on there. Very, very strange place. Hi, Mr. Virtue. Very, very bizarre. Hi, Chris. So that's what's going on down there. But this actually could cause a few ripples in the gold market. Another thing that could cause a few teeny tiny ripples in the gold market that we may never hear about. So the goddess was taking a look at the Fred site today. Fred actually still, that would be our Federal Reserve, St. Louis. Fred actually still posts a few things on their website. One of the things they post on their website is what they call reverse repos, which is like a reverse repurchase thingy that happens overnight, okay? Don't even try and understand how this works, but you can look it up. It's a reverse repurchase agreements. They happen between banks. Apparently, the long and short of it is overnight, let's say Bank A over here has too much cash sitting around that's not making money for them. And Bank B over here is in a cash poor position and needs more cash for some bizarre and unaccountable reason. There will be an overnight deal between Bank A and Bank B where Bank B will buy a set amount of cash from Bank A and pay it back the next morning at a higher rate, etc. So everybody supposedly is happy with this thing. Well, one of the ways that our dearly beloved central bank, meaning the Federal Reserve in this case, adjusts the supply of money. You know, that M2 thing that went vertical and then they decided we no longer had to see it because it's like obsolete or explosive or radioactive or would really wake people up a little bit, and so it disappeared. Well, apparently one of the things the Fed does to try to make some money and to adjust the money supply is overnight they do these reverse repo treasury type certificate things. And they put a really high interest rate on these puppies this time, 5.3%, which is like huge. Okay, this is huge.
For overnight?
For overnight.
Wow, 5% overnight?
Apparently, they were anticipating that when they did this, people would swarm to get this great deal and then turn around and invest all this wonderful pile of cash in the federal treasuries that were being sold the next morning. Well, the overnight reverse repo graph went zing vertical and then zing the next morning when the Fed brought them back at a loss. The treasury graph that they were hoping would go swing went beep and then went right down again. So apparently the people that took advantage of this opportunity to make a very quick profit in absolutely imaginary digital fiat ones and zeros in the Fed system decided not to reinvest that money in the casino that is United States Treasury bills and notes and things. This may have been a bad idea on the part of the Fed. We shall see. Meanwhile, another interesting graph came out of Fedland this week that everybody is studiously ignoring. There is some three-letter agency called the BEA. Okay, well, it's actually a three-letter report called the BEA. It tells people where the Fed money is going. And they have this expenditure sheet, which has a whole bunch of zeros. Many zeros all over the place, even though it's listed in like 1.8 million, you know, with M's after it instead of zeros. Well, according to that little piece of paper, first of all, by the end of the year, we are going to be in a borrowing hole of an extra 1.85 trillion that somehow can kind of get noticed. More importantly, at the current interest rates, with the interest rates that are baked in and the inflation that's baked in at the moment, the total amount that is going to be paid on interest to service our debt in this fiscal year is 1.225 trillion with a T. Quite frankly, the goddess is surprised those charts actually came out, though she did have to go digging for them a little bit. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. It should be noted that this is only based on the shit that we already owe. This is not based on the new shit that is being contemplated at this very moment, even as we speak, in Mordor on the Potomac by our kleptocratic government. You know, the same ones that are currently having hearings about our dear friend Hunter Biden. And if you haven't looked into that business of Mr. Archer, who was not going to testify first, but then the DOJ discovered that blocking his testimony was causing some really difficult questions to be asked, so they said, of course. There was one quote that caught the goddess's attention here, and the goddess will paraphrase. Mr. Archer made it very clear in his testimony that they absolutely were selling exposure and access to Lord Malarkey. That was their brand. That was their brand. Absolutely. How far that goes is anybody's guess, really. Just saying. But things are getting a little interesting in that regard, so we shall see what we shall saw. You never know with those people. So let's find out what's going on in mining this week, if anything is going on in mining this week. Well, MMG's copper production is up 109% in the second quarter as Las Bambas returns to full capacity. Yes. Globally diversified mining company MMG reported last week its quarter 2 2023 total copper production, copper cathode plus concentrates, was 92,847 tons, up 109% compared to quarter 2 2022. The company said the increase in copper output was due to a 153% production increase at Las Bambas, with mining operations at full capacity following the return of social stability and the highest quarterly milling throughput since 2019, driven by various operational improvements, including optimization of the third ball mill. Well, good for them. However, MMG noted that Kinseber's copper production decreased by 7% compared to the prior corresponding period, mainly due to unstable power supply from the national grid, as well as a planned shutdown for the installation work of the cobalt plant. MMG's total zinc production of 49,826 tons, Dugald River was 36,474 tons, and Rosebery was 13,352, was 7% below the prior corresponding period, with Dugald River's focus remaining on safe ramp-up of operations following a restart in late March after the fatal incident in February. Rosebery's zinc concentrate production was higher in the second quarter. The company also said, in line with prior guidance, the full-year zinc production guidance is expected to be between 190 and 215,000 tons, while full-year copper production guidance is maintained at between 305,000 and 353,000 tons. Headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, MMG is a mid-tier global producer of base metals, including copper and zinc. The company is listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and operates and develops copper, zinc, gold, silver, and lead deposits across Australia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Peru. The major shareholder of the company is China Minmetals. Why is the goddess not surprised? This really is going to be a problem, people. This business of the Panda and Company tying up metals around the world is going to be a problem. Not that anybody ever listens to the goddess. No, that would be too much to expect here. So let's see what else we have in latest news today. Bitcoin struggles below 30,000 as Curve CRV hack sends altcoins up, tumbling all over the place. Other strange things are happening in the crypto world here. But basically, Bitcoin has continued to struggle below 30, while multiple tokens in the top 200 saw declines after Curve Finance, a top decentralized exchange for stablecoins, was hit with a $70 million hack, which negatively affected protocols like AAVE that are integrated with the DEX. So, yeah, once again, we have a hack issue. It will be interesting to see what happens with this one. It should also be noted in the midst of all of this, you may remember that dude, Sam Bankman-Fried? The one that was running the crypto Ponzi scheme down there in the Bahamas with his weird little vegan polycule love cult, the philanthropist multi-gajillionaire who got arrested and was laundering tens of millions of dollars for political entities. Well, you'll be pleased to know that the charges have been dropped. We can expect the entire thing to be memory hold at some point in the near future. That way you won't have to worry about it again. Just saying. A rise in the U.S. money supply will drive gold and silver prices to new highs, according to Wells Fargo's John LaForge. Take anything Wells Fargo says with a grain of salt. It's coming up on their turn to pay a multi-million-dollar fine for metals manipulation or screwing their customers over again. I believe it was Chase that paid the last time. Oh, and as a little side note here, the FDIC took control of another mid-tier bank, this one in Kansas. That's been memory hole too, but I'm sure it doesn't matter. It's only like the fourth or fifth, maybe the sixth bank this year. So, it's not like this is a big deal. Despite recent volatility, the gold market continues to hold firm support at around $1,950 an ounce. Despite the precious metal's resilient strength, one analyst said something more is needed to drive the precious metal to a record high. In an interview with Kitco News, John LaForge, head of real asset strategy for Wells Fargo Investment Institute, said gold and silver have been underperforming general commodities in a broad neutral trading range for the last 3 years. Well, no shit, Sherlock. He added the precious metal market is stuck as investors continue to focus on tightening U.S. monetary policies and the sharp drop in U.S. money supply. Well, let's see. The sharp drop from vertical and infinite to half a vertical. Yeah, okay. We'll let him have his little whatever. However, LaForge added the Federal Reserve is nearing the end of its tightening cycle. Both gold and silver could be on the cusp of a long-term bull market as part of the larger commodity super cycle. Ooh, a commodity super cycle. Woohoo! He said it's only a matter of time before the U.S. central bank starts pumping money back into financial markets to keep the economy from slipping into a recession. Polite reminder here, we've already been in a recession and the government never stopped their quantitative easing the last time they started pumping money into the stock market. Just saying, okay? If we do get this jump back up in money supply and again, and investors start to worry we're printing too many of these little pieces of paper, we will finally see a long-term run in gold and silver. I would expect that rally to last for 3 years, he said. LaForge added it wouldn't take a significant rise in the money supply nor a major shift in U.S. monetary policy to support gold prices at record highs. He added the market is already sensitive to the government's massive deficit spending. The market may be sensitive to the government's massive deficit spending. John Q. Public probably is not aware of it. Just, letting you know here. The comments come as the U.S. deficit has surged by more than $1 trillion. Yeah, he still has the big charges, but he should not have anything dropped. I would love to see him in jail forever, and I'm waiting to see some of those big charges start to disappear. I remember a few other people over the years that have had many, many big charges and ended up with nothing. It happens. The comments came as the U.S. deficit has surged by more than $1 trillion with a T dollars in the last 2 months since the U.S. government resolved the debt ceiling crisis in early June. Reminder, we resolved the debt ceiling crisis by temporarily making sure there was no debt ceiling at all. So in other words, when the credit cards hit the limit and exceeded the limit, we resolved this by removing the limit on the credit card entirely, which is really not a resolution by any stretch of the imagination. Just saying. LaForge said he expects the deficit to be a significant talking point ahead of November 2024 elections. On one side of the aisle, maybe. We will live in doubt. Oh, and about that election, the goddess saw a really funny meme today. This meme pointed out that Joe Biden has been in office so long that he was once plagiarizing Robert Kennedy's father. And now, he's not plagiarizing Robert Kennedy at the moment, Jr. But it just struck me as so funny that, yeah, Joe Biden has been in office probably about as long as I've been alive. Well, not quite as long as I've been alive, but he's getting there. Just saying. The more politicians talk about deficit spending, the more people will realize just on how unsustainable this environment is.
Hey, Goldstream, I think he's going to commit suicide in jail.
Where do you go when people start losing the confidence in their currency and want to preserve their wealth and purchasing power? Hearing that coming from a banker kind of is amusing. LaFord said that as the November election approaches, the U.S. could face a similar situation that sparked a crisis of faith in the UK bond market last year. The British bond market saw a significant meltdown in October after the then newly minted Prime Minister Liz Truss released a mini budget that proposed the nation's biggest tax cuts in 50 years. Truss lasted 6 weeks as Prime Minister, and the Bank of England had to support the bond market. Another potential piece to the gold rally is a further deterioration of the U.S. economy. He added the Federal Reserve could be forced to expand its balance sheet as smaller regional banks continue to feel the pressure of a weakening economy, rising corporate bankruptcies, and tighter financial market conditions due to rising interest rates. I don't think it will take much to wake people up to how fragile the economy actually is. There's a lot of potential little triggers that could create a big move in the market. One of the things that may trigger your average person is if we see another increase in mortgage or car loan interest rates. As it stands right now, we're seeing more and more people that are that are in belt tightening phase. They're beginning to cut back on those subscriptions that they get every month. They're not ordering as much Uber Eats. I am seeing a growing number of anecdotal reports, for instance, from Uber Eats drivers and other delivery drivers, that business is going in the toilet in general, and tips are going in the toilet across the board. And there is a growing backlash about tip culture in general in the country. It's beginning to manifest itself on multiple social media platforms because you're seeing more and more businesses like McDonald's and Starbucks that pay a wage. In our town, McDonald's pays $16.50 an hour, that are putting out tip jars. And the employees are getting upset if you don't tip. And in some of these places, like Starbucks, that are um, getting rid of paper money, on their little point of purchase stations, you're now seeing that a tip has already been proactively added to your bill. And if you want to get rid of it, you have to go through several screens to do so. This is beginning to piss people off, unsurprisingly. Because when you're walking into a McDonald's now and you are putting in your order at a kiosk yourself, all by your auntie Donty little lonesome self, and that order is costing what a sit down restaurant used to cost 2 years ago. And then you get up to the counter and you go to pay with your debit card, and you see that this machine is adding on a 15% or even a 20% tip. You're probably going to get a little bit pissed off. So we're going to see more backlash in the tipping economy here. But we're also seeing more people that are seeing other indicators that maybe, just maybe, with the government saying that inflation's finally down below 4% again, thanks to that new formula they rolled out, maybe government figures aren't quite as accurate as they appear. I am seeing more and more people across multiple social media platforms saying, well, I don't get it. Because all of my bills are still going up. My salary increase is not keeping pace with my bills going up. It can't all be corporate greed, can it? And that is the party line that they're trying to push. to help cover this inflation thing that they have created, this monster, and to help cover the recession. They are using the corporate greed. It's called greedflation. That's a new word for you. We now have inflation, which is, in fact, less than 4%, according to the federal government. So, absolutely, your wages, the raise in your wages, has surpassed federal inflation. We have shrinkflation, which is where all those greedy corporations are cutting the amount of product that they put in your product, and they're charging the same price or more. That is a subset of greedflation. Greedflation is the newest buzzword in the media that explains all of the rising prices, because all of the rising prices are purely due to corporate greed. Corporate profits are through the roof, and all these corporations that have hiring signs out and are refusing to hire people and are blatantly exploiting us all are doing so purely out of greed motives. So, yeah, that is becoming the most prevalent scapegoat for the current inflation that absolutely nobody is acknowledging. That is, in fact, there. Current household inflation rate 15.4% as of last month. Yep. So, yeah.
By the way, if anyone wants to know where the term scapegoat comes from, ask me after Eva's done. It's a pretty funny story.
Really, it's a pretty funny story, huh?
Yep.
Silver price outperforms gold as the market bets on a Fed rate hike pause. Well, what do you know? What else is new? My silver is always worth buying, and we all know this, people. So let's see if we can click on this thing. I hate using a touchscreen. Silver price outperforms gold as the market bets on a Fed rate hike pause. The silver market continues to be sensitive to gold price action. However, the volatility in the marketplace shows what kind of potential the gray metal, gray, yeah, I know, has when gold prices start to rally. The gold market, as the contract rolls over to a new month, is seeing a new pushback above 2,000 as announced. However, silver is outperforming the precious metal as it makes a move back to 25 an ounce. September silver last traded at $24.975 an ounce, up nearly 2% on the day. At the same time, December gold futures last traded at $2,009 an ounce, up 0.5% on the day. According to some analysts, both gold and silver are benefiting from growing perceptions the Federal Reserve has ended its tightening cycle. After raising interest rates by 25 basis points last week, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the central bank is keeping its options open and will be heavily data dependent ahead of September's decision. Economists and analysts have said weaker inflation data gives the Federal Reserve room to halt the tightening cycle. According to CME FedWatch tool, markets see a 79.5% chance interest rates will remain unchanged in September. Market players are feeling validated in their belief that the Federal Reserve rates are either at or near the terminal point, especially with crucial U.S. inflation reports indicating a faster pace of disinflation. So we now have inflation, shrinkflation, stagflation, greedflation, disinflation. Okay, we'll figure that one out.
I feel deflated.
Yeah, and we'll figure that one out later. Said James Herzik, technical analyst at ForexEmpire.com. The positive sentiment has had a positive impact on silver, which found support around $22.60 to $22.81. It's worth noting the market tends to experience choppy price action and less stable returns during this period of the year. Silver is on track for the best month since March. Along with shifting U.S. monetary policy, analysts note robust economic activity also supporting silver prices. Silver's industrial demand continues to be driven by the global green energy transition. Precious metals analyst at Heraeus said silver could see robust industrial demand as the U.S. Department of Energy looks to spend $45 million with an M dollars to develop domestic manufacturing with the solar power sector. The solar sector has been the fastest growing silver demand sector and is forecast to reach a record 161 million ounces this year, equal to 14% of total demand. Analysts at Heraeus said in a recent research note. Investment in non-Chinese photovoltaic manufacturing is likely to simply result in rerouting of silver demand from the east to the west, while expected growth in solar capacity installations in EU and US should lead to higher global net silver paste demand. Installed solar capacity grew by 18.5% and 19.8% in the US and Europe, respectively, in 2022. Despite silver's healthy start to a new trading week, Manish Girardi, market strategist at dailyfx.com, said he'd like to see a break above $26.15 to provide a clearer picture of the bullish trend. A drop below $22.10 would highlight a new bearish trend in the marketplace. In another random interesting side note, several people have reported being able to get a hold of 40% Kennedys again at face value in their local banks. So remember, when you happen to be going to your local bank, the much maligned and highly undervalued 40% Kennedys are running around in the wild again. That is something that is worth having. And yeah, that is definitely something worth having as far as the goddess is concerned. I picked up some today. 7 times face value, baby. I got me a profit already. So I was happy. Just saying. And in a weird and odd, rather strange thing here, a new stretchable battery. Yes, I said stretchable battery. Give me a break here. May pave the way for smart clothes. The goddess is really beginning to wonder about this world. This timeline is getting defective again. We need to reboot the whole dang thing. The University of Houston researchers have developed a successful prototype of a fully stretchable, fabric-based lithium-ion battery. Yeah. Okay. As a big science fiction fan.
I feel like a car carrier. Ow, 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 ow.
As a big science fiction fan, I could envision a science fiction-esque future where our clothes are smart, interactive, and powered. Will they also spontaneously combust when they go out of fashion?
Now there's an explanation
Asking
for those
a friend here, okay? Lead researcher
Hale
Ardebili said in a media statement. It seemed a natural next step to create and integrate stretchable batteries with stretchable devices and clothing. Imagine folding or bending or stretching your laptop or phone in your pocket, or using interactive sensors embedded in our clothes that monitor our health. And the goddess is still imagining her entire wardrobe going poof when the fashion changes.
Powered underwear. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, dear God. I don't even want to think about that one. According to Ardebili, some of these ideas are already becoming a reality. However, like all electronics, they need power, which is where stretchable and flexible batteries come in. The researcher noted a major bottleneck in the development of the next generation of electronics or wearable technology embedded in fabrics is conventional batteries are generally rigid, which limits the functionality of the items. And they use electrolyte, which raises safety concerns. So, lithium battery does not raise safety concerns.
Well, little one, think of this though. If you have smart clothes that can do stuff, you can go, well, of course it's that big.
Let's see, swipe right, swipe left. Just saying. The traditional organic liquid electrolytes are flammable, like lithium batteries aren't, and can lead to the possibilities of batteries catching fire or even exploding under certain conditions. At the moment, the goddess believes there is still an entire cargo ship that is slowly melting as it's being kept away from beaches by tugboats somewhere over there near the Netherlands.
The SS Dutch oven, as it was.
But the key to her team's breakthrough lies in the use of conductive silver fabric as a platform and current collector. Silver. The weaved silver fabric was ideal for this since it is mechanically deformed or stretches and still provides electrical conduction pathways necessary for the battery electrode to function well. The battery electrode must allow movement of both electrons and ions, RWB said. By transforming rigid lithium-ion battery electrodes into wearable, fabric-based, flexible, stretchable electrodes, this technology opens up possibilities by offering stable performance and safer properties for wearable devices and implantable biosensors.
That's what I'm worried about.
Smart spacesuits. Okay? The idea for stretchable batteries occurred to Ardebili several years ago. I was interested in understanding the fundamental science and mechanisms related to stretching an electrochemical cell and its components, she said. Yeah, this is exactly why this is happening, okay? No man would come up with anything this stupid. This was an unexplored field in science and engineering and a great area to investigate. Oh, yeah, lady. Great area to investigate. The science of coupling effects of mechanical deformation and electrochemical performance is an important field, and stretchable batteries provide a great vehicle for exploring fundamental mechanisms. Although we have created a prototype, we're still working on optimizing the battery design, materials, and fabrication, the scientists said. Scientists. I'm beginning to wonder. Ardebili is optimistic the prototype for a stretchable, fabric-based battery will pave the way for many types of applications, such as smart spacesuits, consumer electronics embedded in garments that monitor people's health, and devices that interact with humans at various levels. Really now. I wonder what that would mean in terms of smart underwear. Just saying. There are many possible designs and applications for safe, light, flexible, and stretchable batteries. But there is still some work to be done before they're available on the market.
Thank God.
Will the toilet paper then spontaneously combust? There's your question. Commercial viability depends on many factors, such as scaling up the manufacturability of the product, cost, and other factors. We're working toward those considerations and goals as we optimize and enhance our stretchable battery. Stretchable lithium batteries.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong with this idea? On that, we shall draw the curtain of charity on this unhappy notion. Just saying. Yeah, Kodak, that's what we were wondering about is would they be self-cleaning? You know. We're going to draw the curtain of charity on this unhappy notion right there. That's just not happening. The goddess will not wear smart clothing, okay? It ain't happening, people. Never, ever, ever going to happen.
I don't even like having to compete mentally with my computer. My underwear would be just way too much. That's when they say, well, what are you thinking with?
Well, as I said, I can't imagine a dude coming up with this idea. The goddess's sexism is most definitely showing here, but the goddess is pretty sure that the dudes that are working on battery technology are working on battery technology to make sure that ships full of EVs don't go up in flames and start melting because they get so hot. Or Teslas don't spontaneously explode while charging in your garage or something like that. The goddess is pretty sure the men who are working on this technology in batteries are not working on it for clothing.
No, we don't want our anatomically correct female androids to run out of power too early.
Well, that too. I mean, just saying, we all know how that works. Oregon governor signs bill ending unjust corporate activity tax on precious metals dealers and investors. The governor of Oregon, in a highly unprecedented, rare, and historic move, has signed a sensible piece of legislation. So let's take a look at this. With a stroke of her pen, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek put an end to the state's punitive corporate activity taxes applied to precious metal dealers and ultimately gold and silver investors, effective in 2024. Supporting the efforts of in-state small business owners, the Sound Money Defense League and Money Metals Exchange mobilized grassroots support and worked in other ways to secure the passage of House Bill 2073, a package of corporate activity tax reforms and cleanups, which included the exemption of precious metal sales from Oregon's CAT. Gold and silver businesses operate on extremely small margins, similar in scale to brokerages already exempt from the CAT. A CAT imposed on top-line precious metal sales revenue is extremely burdensome when compared to taxes paid by current other CAT payers. Furthermore, the increased costs on precious metals businesses ultimately are passed through to Oregon savers and investors. Oregon is now among the 43 states that do not directly impose sales tax on precious metals, but Oregon's corporate activity tax had been doing this in a backdoor manner up to this point. So we now have another state that has completely freed silver and gold, precious metals, from the fetters of taxation. Sound money advocates have targeted the elimination of discriminatory tax policies that discourage precious metals ownership, reducing the likelihood that citizens will take steps to insulate themselves from inflation and the financial turmoil that flows from the Federal Reserve. So that is a very good thing. As I said, in an unprecedented and likely historic move, sane legislation was signed in Oregon this week. We are still seeing forecasts for this year that gold could finish above 2,000 and stay there. Silver could finish above 25 and stay there. What we are seeing in the real world is a growing bifurcation and a growing acknowledgement that the numbers from the Fed, from all those 3-letter agencies and 4-letter agencies and things, don't seem to be quite as consistent with reality as they should be. It will be interesting to see how much traction and how much momentum our media can generate around the idea that all of the growing economic problems faced by John Q. Public are a result of greedflation. There are too many, very, very many unpleasant places that notion, if it becomes ingrained, can go in terms of future legislation and regulation. And speaking of legislation and regulation, in case you missed it, not being satisfied with coming after your gas stoves, it turns out that the good folks in one or more of the 3-letter agencies in Washington now also want to go after your gas furnaces, your gas water heaters, and all of your gas appliances, including your gas-powered generators. The goddess actually read the new regulation that may apply to generators going forward. Those nice little gasoline-powered generators that keep you from freezing to death in upstate New York when your electricity goes out and there's no more oil to be had. The goddess did read that regulation. The left and several media outlets are trying to say it is once again a vast right-wing conspiracy, and no, this regulation is not trying to effectively ban gas generators. The reality is quite simple. According to actual consumer testing services and nonpartisan and nonprofit organizations, only about 30 to 40% of the generators, reasonably priced gas generators, that are on the market these days, that normal people buy, would meet this new regulatory standard for having onboard CO monitors and how the CO monitor works and the various other safety things that are involved here. According to the generator industry, fully 70% of their generators, as opposed to 30%, would be compliant. What they're not mentioning there, when they got to sit a little more digging on the issue, is oh, yeah, if you take the raw numbers, 70% of their generators are possibly compliant. Unfortunately, those are the ones that generally don't get sold to the public very often. Just saying. It should also be noted that a very large whole house generator that the goddess actually uses with him at the mill is compliant. It's a Predator. It was purchased at Harbor Freight for several $1,000s. It's compliant. The problem is, if there is no steady breeze, despite it being in an entirely open area with full airflow, it will shut off because the CO thing works. And the CO thing is set for a level that is so ridiculous that it will not operate on a calm, breezeless day in entirely open space. The goddess is pretty sure that some of you will see the problem with this idea right out the door, okay? Because there are times when your generator is not going to have 4 to 10 feet of open space around it on all sides, plus absolutely unobstructed above, okay? Some people do not have this kind of room, okay? And you cannot readjust the CO thing. According to Predator, it's adjusted properly. So right there we have a little problem as to how many generators this might actually impact. We're talking about this today, by the way, because this is probably the second to last or last day that incandescent bulbs will ever be a thing. They've been banned. So there is that. So at any rate, we have the left saying it's no big deal because, it's all of these things are going to be perfectly fine. The companies are going to step right up. The companies are going to roll out the brand new ultra cheap generators that lower income people need for power situations in various natural disasters, etc. And it's a vast right wing conspiracy. The government is not trying to ban generators. Well, considering that the standards will be tightening again, considering that the industry itself has made it pretty darn clear by their hemming and hawing statements that much of what the federal government is talking about can't be done cost effectively for the little guy. It's basically designed for bigger things. And that little discrepancy between 30% and 70% being an issue here, I'd say we have a problem. This is not the first problem we are going to have in this matter now that the United States government has decided to go to war against natural gas. And for anybody who's curious, this current war against natural gas is based entirely on an extremely flawed study that was done by a really radical and very, very odd person. Very, very shoddy science. This should be no surprise to anyone. But yeah, there is now an ongoing war against natural gas. This is a small part of the ongoing war against the safe, cheap, and effective forms of energy that have lifted billions of people out of poverty over the last 100 and some odd years since the Industrial Revolution began, in favor of the Great Green Agenda. And while the Great Green Agenda may indeed be very, very good for silver, and to some extent good for gold, and most definitely good for some of the other base metals, it's not going to be good for the rest of us. Just saying. Meanwhile, silver and gold are still on sale. We had a marvelous casserole last night that was made with bison burger and gravy and onions and cauliflower rice and cheese. It was a very good casserole. And remember, unbank thyself, lest thy fiat go poof. And if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Bye bye.
Yeah, there was some Aussie or Zeke, I'm not sure which, had a channel. We were watching a video this morning about that car carrier off the Dutch coast that is currently combusting. And says, originally they said there was 40 electric vehicles on it. Now they say 400, they think, but could be more. And
it started as only 25, and now it's hundreds.
I say it just. I have nothing against electric vehicles in their place, but in most cases there are practical reasons why people aren't owning them. Not the least of which right now is they couldn't possibly build them fast enough to replace the ICE, they like to call them ICE, internal combustion engine vehicles, that are being retired every year due to age and stuff.
By the way, we did see one of the first electric vehicles at that auto museum from like 1913.
Yeah.
It was a little runaround city electric vehicle for ladies to use. And the highest range it ever got was 211 and a half miles on one charge.
Yeah, lead acid batteries. But yeah, I don't know who that guy is. He was pretty funny. It's like somebody or other's auto care or something like that. But he's as good as Uncle Bumblefuck on AVE. Yeah, it was pretty funny. The SS Dutch oven. But he brings up an interesting point. If you were to get more and more electric vehicles, and then you would, assuming that you could actually have enough electricity to provide, routine charging things, take the idea of the underground garage in the Sydney Opera House with a bunch of electric vehicles in it doing the SS Dutch oven trick. And also, apparently, the fumes from those things have, among other things, cobalt in them, which is a very not nice thing to inhale. So I think the way they're going about this is wrong. Okay. Now, whether or not global warming is a thing, et cetera, there's do the math. It doesn't matter how much gold you got in the ore. The question is, how much is it going to cost you to get out versus how much is there versus how much is in the mountain, According to Honey Bunny, the first electric vehicle was made in Scotland in the 1830s or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we were at that car.
Well, I was
museum.
telling him the other day, it is so funny how the very first vehicles were basically electric cars with a push start button. And they moved away from that because better things came along. And now here we are with electric cars with push start button again. Odd how that works.
I say it's really difficult to beat the energy density of fossil fuels.
They were lifted the world out of poverty, dude.
Yeah.
Fossil fuels have generated more wealth and have lifted more people out of poverty than just about anything else.
Yes, I know. But the priests have said we must go another way.
They can say whatever the heck they want.
Do they look like they're Aztecs?
When people start losing their freaking
Yeah, it's going to get interesting. Well, yeah, but nuclear is not terribly portable, Chris. At least not at this stage. Absolutely. Um, I mean, when the ex-head of Greenpeace and one of the co-founders says, "You want to get rid of fossil fuels, you got to go nuclear." There's a reason for that. But see, now there's a case where you might be able to use electric vehicles as the methodology of using nuclear power for transport. You could also go with hydrogen. You could use the nuclear electricity to generate hydrogen, which would then have the energy density needed, especially possibly if you used fuel cells. I don't know. The technology isn't here. And it occurs to me that when your plan kind of by necessity involves either impoverishing or eliminating a large percentage of the people on the planet, you know, hey, Jimmy, how's it going? We got a bunch of stuff in the next week or two that's just going to keep us busy like crazy, but it's all different stuff. The um, the Montana bee, I've got over the next 2 to 4 trips, I'll be breaking through the back of the 40-foot level. So that could get kind of interesting and complicated. Um, Not sure what the ore grade is. Looking at the information that I have, it does not appear that the um, grade is going to be that great right there. But I don't know for sure what the grade is going to be. It clearly looks interesting just below there. And I think the basic plan is going to be to bust through that. Well, first of all, we got to timber as we go, too, because we need to make catch decks and maintain some sort of accessibility to the back in case we want to mine it. You know? Yeah, John. Makes a lot of sense to me. But anyhow, so that's that on that. We're doing some exploration in a couple of different spots. We have a couple other projects that are kind of tangential sort of things, but are taking up a little bit of time right now, such as this ore here, which is a high sulfide ore that somebody brought by to have me run some tests on. All in all, all of August is just going to be crazy, but should be interesting. Yeah, Chris, very small molecules do that. But anyhow, so that's where we're at with the gold mining. If the ore grade does not pick up at Montana B, they left us some. Whether they left us enough is a legitimate question. We have a limited amount of time to ascertain the answer to that question before we'll have to consider, just shutting it down for now. It also depends on what else pops up in the meantime. And say we're working at a couple of things, and other stuff is going to be showing up. So um, we're um, we're having a very interesting time. Eva's sons visited the last few days. Hey, Shaggy, and it's interesting. Those two boys, they're both good boys, okay, but they are so different. It is amazing. Yeah, correct, Chris. And so, for example, her one son was like, "Where do you hunt rabbits around here?" Because he wanted to shoot some and eat them, rather than go out to dinner. And the other one thinks trees are spooky. All that green is just a little unnatural.
And he hates bugs.
He hates bugs and stuff. So I say
he hates climate.
it's one of those strange things. Have you been to the? I have rappelled down far enough where I can see they stopped the mining part, where they had kept going, um, and shrunk things back down again and such. So I have a good idea where the best stuff was, because I can see where it was a lot wider and everything. But it's down there at that lower levels. It wasn't getting, the grades were probably not economic for the circumstance. If you had more ore and a mill on site and a few other little things, it could make sense. Okay, and so it's one of those things where, unfortunately, the ore grade is not keeping up with the channel samples that we took on the way down. And it may be that they were just really good at stopping right when they got to the edge of the good stuff. And so all I was able to sample was the edge of the good stuff. But say it's an interesting project, and it's taught us a lot. It's allowed to refine a bunch of techniques, etc. So we have gained a great deal of knowledge and stuff. And so let's say we got just a number of other projects that we're looking at, because, say, Montana B is not where we thought it would be. It's quite unfortunate, but this is the way things go sometimes. So we shall see. We got lots of interesting things to do, so not a problem. That could be, John. That may be how it is. Not sure. As I was able to sample the stuff that's directly below where I'm working right now, because it's the back of the 40-foot level, and I say I'm not sure exactly where that. Good Lord, where did it go? Where that diagram went?
No idea.
But it's in one of these two, I'm pretty sure. But places where we were sampling and it was going better than an ounce to the ton, when we're actually mining it, it's coming out, substantially less than that. So that is quite undesirable. And we'll have to see whether it's just a weird spot or something else. Yep. Unclear at this point, Jimmy. Top of the hill should probably be free mill. This one isn't really a project. It was just somebody wanted some help analyzing this rock. I'm not sure about the stuff from Jeff, but we'll get to see that in a couple of weeks. I agree, Chris. Say the problem with that is it's going to require getting up on the decking, and it gets a little complicated. The other alternative would be to go up above to the upper decline and sink from there, and that would be another way to get to it. I say right now we're just kind of going down, but yeah, overhand stoping above the ladder track might be a good idea too. So, and say that's kind of thing, but it has helped us get a lot of stuff debugged on the extraction process and the milling. That has helped a lot. And I'm getting kind of the sinking feeling that that's not going to be the magic location where we start making good money, but we have the knowledge on how to make the good money. So say we shall see what we shall see. It may be, say Jeff may have a better situation, and if so, we'll do that. Well, I'm not actually sure, Jimmy. He's busy doing something. He hasn't been loquacious about exactly what it is. He has said he will be back. He's still in the area. I know that. Okay. What he's actually doing, I'm not sure. So, yeah, Chris, that is an option. Okay. And as we're going down, we are taking samples where we can get to them. But that's an excellent question. I don't have an excellent answer yet. Say I don't think he's operating at this point, Jimmy. But aside from that, I'm not sure. Oh, who knows, Shaggy? Let's say we'll find out someday. We are assured. He keeps showing up, so that's a good sign. Hopefully, he'll be back because he was a good addition to this. I'm not nearly as good doing monologues as when we had dialogues. Yeah, Chris, I say it's there's some interesting possibilities there, but at the moment, we're kind of what do you call that? Backrooming that one. We're going to put forth a moderate amount of effort to get through to the 40-foot level, and we're developing more information at the same time on other stuff. And this is one of those situations where we're continuously reevaluating situations. For example, today I was looking on the satellite and this, that, and the other, and getting some other stuff figured out that we can go and look for while we're up at top of the hill. It's possible that there are workings up there that are of significant, not big, but merely significant size that we have not identified yet. As a matter of fact, it seems highly likely, but we'll need to locate them, identify them, sample them, go from there. And in some cases, we're going to have to claim them. So we got a lot of it's going to be a lot more complex and varied than last summer, Yeah, I understand completely, Chris. I said we're getting to the point right now where it may be a little difficult to get the last little bit of the deck in because it's so high above the area that I'm at. We shall see and go from there. I don't want to take any chance. I know right now the next stole that I need to put in for the deck that I'm working on right now, I'm going to be on a ladder over the right next to the edge of the decline, roped off and working higher than I can reach with my bare hands, basically. I have to get a little bit of height to do that. And so we'll just have to see how that goes. But it is an interesting summer. I will give it that. It's not just like last summer, it was just crunching, or at least towards the end of the season. It was just crunching it out. We'll have to see, Chris. I say it's one of those things where I'll play it by ear and go from there. There's all kinds of possibilities. I mean, we could even, once I have a reasonable deck, we can even, work the front of that. And what we can't get on that deck, we can just drop to the next deck down potentially. All kinds of possibilities. But right now, I'm confident we can figure it out when we need to, but we're not to the point where we're, we're not stopped yet, but we're looking at, we may be stopped here pretty quick. So I'm not investing all my intellectual effort into that particular thing. Yeah, I haven't actually got to the last of the sump there because it's about 170 feet deep, and I simply don't have enough rope to get all the way. But I got to, I got within about 20 feet of the end, and I can see what it's looking like there and what it looks like where I can get and this and that. And I see no reason to believe that there's anything better down there. This looks like one of those situations where they walked away. And it's not like they were right in the middle of making piles of money. So I say the plan for now is to finish off to the 40-foot level and, evaluate other possibilities. I mean, if Jeff gives us 10 tons of dump running better than an ounce to the ton, well, that'll keep us pretty busy this fall. That's a lot of crushing and grinding and leaching and stuff. Yes, little one?
Are we taking out all that ladder tracking stuff as we walk away?
Not right now. We'll leave the ladder track in place. And we could theoretically use like the head frame somewhere else if we wanted to. Yeah. Although I think with what we've learned, I'd probably want to build a somewhat different head frame, but we shall see what we shall see. I say it's one of those deals where we don't have enough information to say with any certainty what it is we want to build or want to do in the near future. So, no, it's pretty clean down there, Jimmy. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not like, what was that one? It's further down the hill. I did. Yeah, I put up that video. What did I call that one? Oh, goodness. What was the name I put on that? Excuse me, gentlemen.
You mean
it's been busy.
Hit out from that was the central?
Yeah, I think that was like what I called it.
I don't remember what you called it.
What's the bottom of 4 center? Yep, exactly. So I say that one is a different story. That one is kind of buried at the bottom. And yeah, the problem with Pack Rat Penthouse, Chris, is the remaining ore is the only thing holding up the back. Now there's some more exploration where the bottom of that decline, we're looking at like this, 1/2 ounce to the ton, something to that effect. So it's not profitable right there, but who knows what would happen if you continued down. That is a serious question. So, and you know, the middle decline, same thing. You don't know what you're going to run into if you keep sinking. All I can say is I saw no indication that they suddenly got excited and started mining versus developing again. Possibly, Chris. The problem with the lower decline is there is no ladder track or everything in place. Okay.
Oh, that ladder down there is not that bad.
We're actually, John, we're really busy as it is. Okay. There are other out, for example, where Lauren's working, if they get their permits at the end of the summer, I could be up there logging core samples. You know, so I am not concerned with how we're going to pay the bills, and it's too funny watching on my TV and on my phone. What are you doing, Shaggy? You linking it from something else, from this feed here? So you're doing YouTube on the TV or something? As long as it's funny, I'm happy to make you smile. But our current situation is that we should be able to survive in relative comfort. We wouldn't have much in the way of luxuries or anything like that, just on my Social Security. That's housing, utilities, food, gas. Okay. So we've got essentially security, as much security as we have, and the whole world's falling to pieces. However, I like the activity and the intellectual stimulation and stuff. I like the physical activity. I would not do well just sitting around the house. Eva would probably have to kill me for self-protection, and I wouldn't want to put her in that position. But anyhow, but there's so many help wanted signs. Oh, okay. I understand that, Shaggy. So there's plenty of options as I see it. I'm not worried about financial stuff. I'm not terribly concerned about running out of interesting things to do. Jimmy's got some stuff he wants me to do. Dave has some stuff he wants me to do. Lauren may have some stuff he wants me to do. You know, there's all kinds of options. So we're feeling quite comfortable as it is. This is one of the reasons why it was so funny when her youngest son is saying, you know, why don't you monetize your YouTube channel? And you know, I see other people they must be making a lot of money and this and that. And it's like, if we make too much money, we got to pay Eva's medical bills. She's not on Medicare, you know, things like that. You know, that doesn't necessarily seem to be a good thing. We're happy. Okay. With the exception that sometimes I'm a real jerk and Eva has to put up with me. Sometimes I get stressed out or whatever and bullshit. Like yesterday was a damn computer. I was yelling at the computer, but she was unfortunately in the line of fire, so to speak. It was rude, completely unjustified. etc. But that's about the extent of it. Aside from that, we're actually pretty darn happy. And I even get to go fishing. I was annoyed because I took her youngest son fishing. He's the one that isn't scared of trees. And it was a place.
He's not afraid of trees. He just does not believe in trees.
Yep. And he went. I took him to the same place I'd been the last 2 times. I was just slamming him. We caught 2 fish. He caught 0. I caught 2. So annoying. Yeah, I know, Chris. Unfortunately, that just creates another set of difficulties with the new one. Yep. So I bet you Jimmy would be happy to have me helping him out on some stuff, for example. Just the construction, So, as I say, Eve and I are overall pretty comfortable. We're in a nice niche. We like where we're at. We like what we're doing. We're not looking to, like, you notice my YouTube channel is not monetized. Okay. That is not accidental. That's a deliberate choice on my part. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. If I were to monetize the channel, then YouTube would start pushing the channel. Then I'm going to have a bunch of active subscribers, and I'm going to start getting inundated with comments and this and that and the other. And it's just going to get overwhelming in terms of I can't keep it up. And so I prefer to keep it like this. We got 13 people here. Okay. We can have a conversation. Anyone that wants to say something, anyone that's got a question to answer, anyone that's got a smart alecky remark, we can all see it, interact with it, respond to it. Okay. Outlier has questions. Propane or electric smelting furnace, best uses for each, and crucible types. I'll start on this, Outlier. I have a feeling somebody's going to butt in a minute here.
I will let you have the floor on this.
Okay. Propane or electric smelting. If you are using it just for smelting and you've got reasonable size amounts that you're going to be doing, by far the least expensive way to get a good volume of stuff is going to be propane, or, as Chris says, waste oil. Okay. Waste oil is a little less standardized. Okay. But you can get a decent sized smelting furnace in propane just fine.
You can build one.
You can build one even cheaper.
Jeff Williams
did a pretty good video on it. Now, with that kind of a furnace, you can even do assaying and stuff, but not as precise as you could in something where you weren't using a lot of, smelting, because assaying is pretty precise in terms of a small quantity of metal at the end, is what you want. So contamination can be a little bit of an issue. You can adjust the atmosphere in a gas-fired or fossil fuel-fired kiln fairly easy. So you can go with a reducing or an oxidizing atmosphere or a neutral one fairly easily. Electric, if you're doing small quantities, like laboratory scale stuff, it's not a bad option. We've been using this one. Maintenance is a bit of an issue, okay? Unless you get a pretty high quality one, which gets kind of pricey, you're going to be replacing elements and things like that. For the price for that tabletop kiln we are using, you could get a full size, the equivalent of a 7.5 gallon propane tank to 10 gallon propane tank size furnace. Okay. So, I mean, and you'd have money left over. The electric furnace, the advantage is you have easy, precise control of the temperature, and it's easy to install and like that. The electric furnace we are using, it's kind of the deluxe model, and a year or two ago when it was purchased, it was like $550. That's a tabletop brand. Okay. We got the programmable controller and stuff. I would say, unless you've got a darn good reason for it, which we did, I wouldn't bother with the programmable controller. How about you, little one? Just the one where you just set the temperature?
Just the one where you set the temperature
Yeah,
and walk away.
That's what Lauren has, and for most purposes, is just fine. Okay. The problem with adjusting your atmosphere in such a furnace is that since you're not burning anything, you've got air. You either have to start introducing stuff or put like a block of wood on top of the charge in the crucible to create a reducing atmosphere there. There's a variety of ways of doing it, but they are somewhat more complicated. And the problem that I've seen is those electric heating elements they just don't last for a long time. Now, with Chris's help, I was able to get the Kanthal wire, which is more reliable, and the confidence to actually make and replace my own heating elements. And that's not a problem. Yeah, I mean, because I had the one heating element when I first got it, I could tell what the resistance was and everything. So it made it pretty easy to make my own heating elements. And that is not a huge problem. Okay. And as Chris says, you can pipe in gas to create a reducing atmosphere or whatever. There's somebody who's working on a more complex and robust and versatile furnace design that says once they've got their first one, their first prototype up and running and tested and working well, he wants to send me essentially a duplicate or the next iteration so that we can put it through its paces and tell him what we think about it, which would be way cool. Because I tell you what, if the one we're using is Volkswagen, this one's a Cadillac. It's got all the nice options. Okay, so that would be fantastic. But yeah, those are kind of the pluses and minuses as I see them. And you know, if you got
somebody should ask me since I'm the one that uses the darn thing.
Yeah, Chris. Oh, and you're going to need good exhaust around the furnace, whatever it is. You know, those gases, especially if you're smelting anything with heavy metals in it, or you're doing assays or whatever. You got heavy metal fumes running around. You need really good exhaust around them for safety. Well, do you want to take
I will
over?
come over. First, I'm going to go to the bathroom.
She shall deign to
First, I'm going to go to the bathroom,
bless
and
us
then I
with her
will come
presence
over
shortly.
here, and I will ask many questions. I am the one who does it.
She will elucidate. But when it comes to those heating elements, either the Kanthal or the nichrome, they have certain vulnerabilities. Okay. Now, they are pretty cheap to replace, depending on how complex the element is, and a few other little things. But to just make a spiral heating element, yeah, 7/16 wooden rod with a screw in the side, chuck it into a drill, you know, and it was surprisingly easy. One thing I really don't like about this furnace, the holes that the wires go through, Um, the insulation in there is basically kind of a ceramic foam sort of stuff, and those holes have gotten kind of
Not very
messed up
durable.
over time, and so we have to put some extra stuff in there to keep the wires from hitting the case.
Okay. I have many questions here, people. So,
You're supposed to have the answer.
well, what I need to know is what kind of things are you looking to do with this furnace? Because they both have their points, okay? But if you're looking to do primarily, no, Chris, they don't have porcelain insulators. Don't I freaking wish they had porcelain insulators, okay? Yeah, that is what I'd like to do is get some ceramic tubes for the outlets. Next time I get a furnace. I will say that tabletop furnace, I wanted to blow it up as soon as I got a real furnace. But I'm getting darn impressed with how the thing is put up with the systematic abuse and extreme abuse that we are putting it through. And it's still kind of, almost, well, sort of, in one piece. Just saying. But if you're planning, hi, Mr. Virtue. If you're planning to do really small things like you actually want to do assays, I personally would love to have a real muffle furnace for doing assays because the gas allows a nice controllable environment, and there are times when that comes in handy. If you're using, if you need to smelt a bunch of larger things, like later on this year, I'm going to have to recover my lead from my QPEL material. You want a larger furnace. I do really like that one Jeff Williams built. Okay. Uh, the porcelain insulators, Patrick, as it stands right now with that tabletop, you'll notice the foamy kind of insulation stuff it has is a little bit fragile. So when you
Yeah.
pull the heating element wires out to replace
Or
them,
have spills.
or have spills, it can erode away the insulation there that wire goes through so that you can plug in the elements and make them work underneath the furnace. So if you used any standard porcelain beads, as Chris said, or like little porcelain tubes, and glued them or put them in there in some fashion, then you'd have a nice permanent strong hole to put that heating element wire through so that you can just plug it in the bottom again and get it working again without having to worry about it grounding out on metal anywhere or doing anything weird. So yeah, I mean, that's the porcelain insulators are a great thing. I mean, I really want them. I mean, that is something I most definitely want. But basically, what I have always been a fan of gas. And I will flat out say that in 99.999% of the applications in this known universe, the goddess hates electric stoves. The goddess hates electric kilns. The goddess hates microwave anythings. The goddess likes gas. Okay? This is no exception to that rule. The goddess wants gas. That is what we're going to be getting at some point, maybe. In the meantime, for anybody looking to do little things in the home environment, I will say that the electric furnace for small stuff is turning out to be really darn good. And it has a very small footprint. So you don't need to have a whole lot of fireproof room for it the way you do for the larger ones that are made out of old propane tanks. They take up more room. So for small environments, for environments where you don't want huge amounts of heat being thrown out and you don't want to have to go to extremes to mitigate risk of fire, the electric ones actually do have a purpose there. The goddess is not pleased with them, but I have come to tolerate that. Okay. When it comes to QPELs, it is sad and disgusting and ridiculous that there are no decent bone ash cupels in the damn universe, apparently. I really want to get the equipment to press my own freaking bone ash cupels because a proper bone ash cupel is supposed to ring. Cupels are supposed to ring when you click them together. Magnesia ones ring differently than Portland cement ones. Portland cement ones ring differently than bone ash. Blended bone ash and Portland cement ring differently than pure bone ash. Each type of cupel has a different purpose. But the problem is the ones that you buy anywhere are not going to ring, people. They're going to clunk. You may get lucky and get a click out of them now and then, but they're going to clunk. And they all suck rocks. Okay? That's all I will say about that. They all absolutely, wow. I wish I had seen that, Jeff.
What?
Jeff saw a 2200-degree electric furnace at a pawn shop for like $135.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. Mine hits maybe $19.90 on a really good day. Because the one problem with the Canthal wire that we switched out to is because it's longer and he changed the design of how the elements go. It doesn't get quite as hot as it used to, which is kind of annoying. But, if you're going to be doing high temperature things like platinum group metals and playing with copper and et cetera, you're going to want a high temperature furnace. The one I have will barely handle gold, even taking into consideration the original specifications. It's not designed for heavy duty stuff. Okay, so honey bunny, you're giving me serious furnace envy, and that is just not cool, girlfriend. Okay, honey bunny's over here talking about her furnace is 2200 and has like 4 cubic feet of space. Yeah, she's just trying to show off now.
Oh, man.
We know how that is. Totally uncool, showing off like that. Bummer. But anyway, when it comes to cupels, there are no decent cupels anywhere in the world, unless of course you make your own. You can, if you look around, find a cupel maker. You can, if you look around, find bone ash. I will say that I have read in the greatest resources for this matter that the bone ash from cheap bones is the best. I have not had a chance to test this as of yet. But I will also say that the testing I have done with homemade Portland cement cupels, the crucipels, just pressing Portland cement really tight into a crucible that is no longer a fire clay crucible, a fired crucible that's beginning to be too eroded to use. They actually work pretty darn good. I'm quite pleased with that. They work pretty darn good for non-precise things. For precise things like my assays, I still use bone ash cupels for those. I want to continue to use bone ash cupels for those. I have the 2 sizes of bone ash cupels that they sell on the Legend mining website. And Chris, the chances are very good I have not tried these yet. Let me see. The 2.5-inch premium bone ash cupels, huh?
Is that a legend?
This is on PMC Supplies. They claim that they're premium bone ash cupels, and these ones,
Save the link.
$9.54 for one. You buy 6 for $8.25 each. You can buy 80 for $3.94 each. Small cup-like porous containers featuring a hemispherical depression design that focuses heat on the center fire assay, collection of gold and silver from lead. They typically absorb about 90% of the lead, 10% turns into an oxide. Please use a well-ventilated area. No, I have not tried them yet.
Just hit the start.
Jeff says it was a 110 volt, 15 amp, I think, and claimed a top temp of 2200 degrees. Looked like it was simple on off and not programmable. Well, ours was programmable. That sounds like, yep, that sounds like the basic tabletop unit. We have the deluxe tabletop unit. I will tell you right now, I 100% agree with him on this one. Don't waste your freaking money on the programmable deluxe thingy. Because I will tell you right now, that programmable thingy wingy that they put on there, the widget whoozy whatsy, it is the most unintuitive programmable system I have ever seen. It works from like right to left. Everything is backwards on it. You push the up button to go down. You push the down button to go up. You push the off button to turn it on. We're talking that unintuitive here. Okay.
Must be from Australia.
So I personally would not bother using it. And yeah, Chris, I want a lever press and I want to make my own cupels. Because a cupel is supposed to ring. Every cupel I have ever had clunks. The problem with cupels that clunk is you can get negligible but not infinitesimal gold and silver losses. Stuff can fall into the cupel. The other problem with the cupels that clunks is they tend to crack when in use. This is a very undesirable thing when you're dealing with extremely tiny beads, as in a milligram of material, or 100 milligrams of material, or 50 milligrams of material. A bead that is small
or
enough.
10 grams of pure gold.
Or 10 grams, you don't want something that cracks when there is a liquid in it that can go right down in that crack and go poof. It's really not nice. It's not pleasant. It annoys me. I have not tried magnesia cupels yet. I know that some people swear by them. I know that back in the 1920s, 1930s, when they came into vogue primarily in places like Canada and Africa, outside of the U.S. No idea why. But I have not had the chance to try them yet. They have apparently different characteristics when cupellation is occurring, and I really would not, I'd have to get familiar with it to decide which I like first. But yeah, there are no decent cupels in the world, so good luck with that. You're going to want to make your own at some point if you want to get really serious. If you don't want to get serious, yeah, Legend has a fairly kind of sort of maybe reasonable price on something that they claim is a bone ash cupel that is probably made in China. They all clunk. I would advise you to try to keep them in a humidity controlled environment so they don't crack as badly when you're using them. Just saying, not as badly. But if you're looking at big things, gas is great. If you're looking at many things, gas and square footage is great. If you're looking at small things, if you want to do things with metal clay, I will tell you right now, I've heard from a lot of crafters and jewelers that work with the silver clay and the gold clay, the precious metals clays. They love that tabletop. For their application, with the utter lack of corrosive crap going on, a tabletop furnace basically lasts forever, apparently. The reason mine looks like crap is because fluxes are fairly corrosive, and resin beads, it turns out, are highly corrosive when you melt them, when you try to ash them. Whatever's in those buggers is really, really highly corrosive. So it's not good for furnaces anyway. But that's where I am on this. So yeah, bye. Back to you. Yeah, Chris sent me a link to the Cadillac of cute bells. I didn't even save the link. The window may still be open up there, but it's like, yeah, if you buy them in quantity,
Did
they're like
you
3.5.
star it, little one? Did you save it?
No, there it is right there. I have not bookmarked it yet.
Okay, I bookmarked it.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
You're welcome, outlier. See, a good question gives a lot of time. Oh my goodness. See, I was laying down. Unfortunately, it's apparently bad on the hair. Oh, the horrors. Pretty much, Chris. I don't know why this. So, anyhow, for those who showed up late, we're helping a guy do some basic extractive metallurgical analysis on the source sample he gave me, and we'll go from there. Once I get some results, I'll post a follow-up. But everything is very busy right now. We got a lot of different things. We're going to have at least 2 more unknown ores showing up here in the next month, where we're going to be running essentially the same process. We have potentially some other stuff where we're going to have unknown ores. So this season, instead of production, it's a lot more of the exploration stuff. Honey Bunny, talk to Chris, and he can help you with controllers and stuff like that. Basically, it's a low amperage controller that runs a high amperage relay. And you got a thermocouple and a few other little things there, but apparently it's pretty simple to put stuff together. Chris knows a heck of a lot more than I do about that. Of course, that's not unusual for almost any subject. Yeah, essentially, essays. He knows all that stuff a lot better than I do, and he can probably, as you'll notice, he can find the links real quick. He really knows how to surf the internet. I mean, he can hang 10 with a blindfold on the internet. He's pretty darn good. See what I mean, Honey Bunny? Yeah, that happens too, Honey Bunny. Oh, yeah. Remind me about the rooms tomorrow too, little one. I'm going to forget. I'm just way too busy right now. So anyhow, that's basically it. I've got at least two projects that I can't discuss. And so, yeah, we're having us a very interesting and busy summer here. Plus, we're getting visits from, our children and things like that. My youngest daughter is going to be here on Thursday for a couple hours. She's heading towards Coeur d'Alene from her house in Vegas, and wanted to stop for a couple hours. So, I forgot to ask. It's probably too late now. Let's see. Oh, no. Let's see. There we go. See if he's still on his phone. Probably not. I don't know if he's planning on staying the night in town or not. Seems unlikely. Probably forgot to ask Lauren a question. Hey, did you ever ask, is it okay for us to come swing by up there? Not a good time? Okay. That's all I want to know because my daughter's going to be here on Thursday and wanted to just kind of go someplace interesting and, you know, visit for an hour or two and then continue on down the road. She's going to Coeur d'Alene. So wanted to check on that. Yeah. Okay. No problem. All righty. Okay. Okay. You, you betcha. You take care. Bye bye. Answer is don't know. So, but he knows the question, and so he'll get back with us if he can. Yeah, Lauren's doing some work up in the hills, and that means communication is iffy. So, anyhow, that's basically where we be at. And anyone else got any questions? That one worked great. Thank you, Outlier. So, yeah, if you're going to use an electric kiln, you definitely want ceramic insulators, though. You need to go milk a goat. Well, that's not something just everyone gets to say. That's one thing that would be very annoying to me about having critters like that is you got to milk them. I mean, you got to milk them or they get sick. You know. Oh, that's a shame, honey bunny. Her baby died.
Baby goat.
Baby goat.
Oh man.
Yep. Oh, that's sad.
That sucks.
Yeah. Oh well. Such is life. Oh. Anyhow. Anything else out there, folks? Any questions, comments? Unfortunately, you can't throw fruit through the screen here, so that doesn't. Uh, Basically, he had a congenital issue there. That's a shame. It happens. Couldn't have bred him anyway. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments? Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Yeah, it depends on what they need him for. I say he just wouldn't have been a breeding goat. Why would he have sold for a really high price? Even with an issue, if he'd have survived, even with the birth defect? Or is that assuming that he was a thing? You betcha, Shaggy. Okay. Yep. Oh well. Yeah, I say it's a shame, but life sucks and you die. Good night, Chris. Thanks for being here today. That was long enough. And Tricky is okay, but he's busy out in the field, and so don't worry about him. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought, honey bunny. So I say he's fine. He sent me a message earlier today that he wasn't going to be able to make it. Oh, you're most welcome, Mr. Virtue. That's what we're here for. I'm saying that's why I do not want to monetize the channel, because we couldn't do this the way we do it if I was busy. I mean, that one day that the algorithm decided to push me 17,000 views. Holy crap. You know? Just a note, the guy that owns the chain I Can Mine published a YouTube vid, and it sure added to desire. Exactly, honey bunny. It's a community. And it is kind of like a family, although I think we get along together better than most families of this many people. All righty. Well, I don't see any more questions or anything, so I think we'll go ahead and call it a night here. Yeah. Exactly. I say, if you got any questions or whatever, send them along. You need me to look at pictures or something and stuff like that, you can email them to me and go from there. Claim, huh? Okay. So, yeah. All righty. Second call. Night, Graham. Okay, I guess I'm calling it. Thank you all for showing up. Had a good time. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.